Chapter 3603 Meet Bun Theory. Empress Jo stood up slightly when she saw the 8-country emperors enter. She naturally did not take these people seriously, so she did not move at all. However, the 8-country emperors did not dare to have any objections. The man in white had a natural dignity that made people submit to him. He Shinjo saw that the 8-country emperors were very afraid of Biming, and she could not help but heave a sigh of relief in her heart. Fortunately, she had the gigolo as a killing weapon. Otherwise, there would be a lot of open and secret fights when they met. He Shinjo said a few polite words before getting someone to set up a banquet. After a few cups of spirit wine, the 8-country rulers also relaxed a little. They thought to themselves that they were really a little cowardly. They were all in the same position, so what was there to be afraid of? No matter how powerful that white-clothed man was, could he really be disadvantageous to them? Thinking of this, the attitude of the 8-country rulers also became arrogant. According to the size of their country, although the East Phoenix country was in the middle of the 9 countries, its area was the smallest. Moreover, the East Phoenix kingdom's strength was slightly weaker than the other 8 countries, so there was no need for them to be humble. After seeing the change in their expressions, He Shinjo only took a sip of tea. This guy naturally wanted to drink spirit wine, but there was a malefic star sitting next to him, so he didn't let her drink it. Everyone, what do you think of this spirit stone convention? He Shinjo asked with a faint smile. This is naturally a great thing. The Li Hate Palace will distribute the several spirit stone veins they control to the victorious kingdom. This is a great pie falling from the sky. The monarch of the soaring heavens kingdom said with a loud voice. That's right, this is an unquestionable great thing. Of course, if some countries are unable to obtain victory in the competition, then it naturally isn't a good thing, the monarch of the soaring heavens kingdom said with a hint. Everyone present was a smart person, so they naturally knew that the monarch of the Heaven Transformation Kingdom was referring to the East Phoenix Kingdom. After all, the East Phoenix Kingdom did not have any outstanding advantages in any aspect, regardless of the competition event set up by the Li Hen Palace. The East Phoenix Kingdom was unable to obtain a good result. Although the other monarchs did not agree, they clearly agreed with the monarch of the Heaven Transformation Kingdom's words. They all felt that this Spirit Stone convention was a great good thing. He Shinjo took another sip of tea, then eagerly glanced at the wine cup that a certain monarch had placed by his side. Only then did she say, fortune and misfortune depend on each other, so everything is not absolute. This emperor feels that this spirit stone convention might not be as simple as everyone thinks. The various monarchs were stunned. Firstly, they did not expect this little girl to be so arrogant. Secondly, could this spirit stone convention really be a disaster? He Shinjo did not beat around the bush. She continued, to put it in the best possible terms, those spirit stone veins originally belonged to our respective countries. However, they were forcibly taken over by the Li Hen Palace for various reasons. This is like someone snatching your meat buns, taking a few bites and then throwing them to you, but you are all extremely grateful, extremely grateful. Most importantly, that meat bun was not thrown directly to you. Instead, it was given to you as a showstopper before being graciously thrown to you. Did you think that was the end of it? Next, it would not be the meat bun. I'm afraid that your houses, fields, and even your lives would be taken away. Unfortunately, you are still happy for the meat bun that you lost and was bitten a few times. Don't you think it's funny? Chapter 36. For this was my little Wu Yun. When the 8 monarchs heard He Xinjia's words, they were stunned for a moment. Then their expressions became complicated. They were all intelligent people who understood at a single point. What meat buns, houses, and fields? To put it bluntly, it meant that the Li Hate Palace was using the Spirit Stone vein to make the 9 countries fight each other, while the Li Hate Palace was sitting back and taking advantage of the situation. In the end, they would definitely divide the 9 countries and attack them, taking all of them into their own pockets. Just as their hearts were in turmoil, they heard Empress Jo say with a smile, "Let's not talk about these troublesome matters. I want to show you something good." As Empress Jo spoke, she summoned little Wu Yun and had him fly around the tent. If He Shinjo had not said those words before, the 8 emperors would definitely have asked questions in high spirits. But at this moment they were not in the mood. Although they felt that this little Wu Yun was very rare, they did not say anything and only gave a few perfunctory compliments. He Xinzhou said with a faint smile. Do you think that this little Wu Yun of mine is just a spiritual artifact? To tell you the truth, this is a real Wu Yun. It was cut down by me from the Wu Yun. The 8 monarchs' noses almost twisted in anger. Did this little girl think that they were stupid? She even chopped it off from the top of the Wu Yun. Wu Yun had already killed you with a few bolts of heavenly lightning, and she asked you to chop it off. He Xinzhou did not explain further. Instead, she said to the little Wu Yun, "Come, show the monarch the heavenly lightning. Don't chop too much. Just 1 bolt." Wu Yun floated to the center of the field. Boom! A heavenly lightning bolt struck the ground, leaving a scorched hole on the carpet. The 8 emperors stood up and looked at Wu Yun in disbelief. Oh my God! Oh my God! It was really Wu Yun? That girl did not boast. Was it really Wu Yun who could strike the heavenly lightning bolts? Oh God! How did she do it? 2 days ago there was a long-lasting thunder. Could it be that this girl slashed Wu Yun at that time? So it made Tiandao angry? He Xinzhou waved her hand, and Wu Yun floated above her head obediently. I didn't lie to you, did I? You might have heard that I am the messenger of the divine phoenix, so Tiandao naturally dotes on me a lot. This little Wu Yun is a small gift from Tiandao, and he asked me to use it as a flying spirit tool, He Xinzhou said shamelessly. However, the 8 country emperors believed her. This was because no one had ever obtained Wu Yun. In their eyes, Wu Yun was an item that could send down heavenly lightning. It was an unattainable emissary of Tiandao. Since the female emperor of Zephyr had obtained Wu Yun, this meant that she was really the favored child of Tiandao. No wonder she was invincible, and became the country emperor of a first-class country. Humans were like this. Once they had a psychological hint, everything could be attributed to the higher-ups. When the 8 monarchs recalled the meat bun theory that He Xinzhou had mentioned earlier, they immediately believed it more. This must be a warning from Tiandao. There was a high chance that Li Hen Palace truly had ulterior motives. He Xinzhou did not strike while the iron was hot. If the medicine was too strong, it would backfire, she said with a smile. Of course. I may have been thinking too much about those meat buns and the like that I mentioned before, so there's no need to take it to heart. However, if the hateful palace sends people to sow discord, everyone should take note. That very likely means that I was right to worry. At that time, it's not too late for us to discuss countermeasures. Chapter 3605 Seeds of Doubt. When the 8 monarchs heard He Xinzhiu's words, they actually believed her words even more. Although they tried their best to remain calm on the surface, there was still a bit of worry in their eyes. If the hateful palace really intended to do so, they probably wouldn't have much strength to fight back. After all, the hateful palace had a national master in every country, and they had the secret method to communicate with the worshipping spirit beasts in every country. If they were desperate, what would they do? He Xinzhou acted as if she didn't see the worry in their eyes and said with a smile, "Come on, don't stand on ceremony. Let's drink and eat. These are the specialties of our East Phoenix country, and they taste pretty good." The 8 country emperors were not in the mood to eat. They ate a few mouthfuls of food perfunctorily, and then took their leave one after another. He Xinzhou pretended to persuade them to stay, and then watched the 8 country emperors leave. Seeing them leave, this guy leaned back on the chair and revealed a faint smile. The seed of doubt had been planted, and he was just waiting for it to break out of the ground. He hoped that the Li Hen Palace would not disappoint her and quickly send people to sow discord between them. When the monarch of the Tsong Heaven Kingdom, Emperor Shaoxian, returned to the Tsong Heaven Kingdom, before he could even sit down properly, his subordinates reported that the people from the Li Hen Palace had arrived. Emperor Shaoxian's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the little girl was right? Although Emperor Shaoxian's heart was beating fast, he did not dare to be negligent and immediately sent someone to invite the people from the Li Hen Palace in. In order to show their respect, the Li Hen Palace had sent an Elder Zhu from the Li Hen Palace. After the exchange of greetings, Elder Zhu said with a smile, "Your Majesty Shaoxian, this time, our palace lord has specially rewarded the various countries with a few mineral veins as a reward. Naturally, there will be many capable people. The Tsong Heaven Kingdom has always been good at making talismans. I believe that this time they will be able to win at least one mineral vein." Emperor Shaoxian said a few words of modesty. After the two of them chatted for a while, Elder Zhu changed the topic and said, I heard that the female emperor of the East Phoenix Kingdom invited a few emperors to a banquet just now. I wonder what she said? Emperor Xiaoxian's eyes narrowed slightly and he laughed loudly. Then he said, It's interesting. I don't know where the female emperor of the East Phoenix Kingdom got a spirit tool that looks like Wu Yun, but she showed it to us in a rather smug manner. It's no wonder. After all, she's just a little girl. She naturally wants to show off if she has something good. Upon hearing Emperor Xiaoxian's words, a hint of contempt flashed across Elder Zhu's expression. He then said, So that's how it is. After all, she's not the legitimate ruler of a first-grade country. She can't be compared to the rulers of your countries, so her self-restraint is a little lacking. Emperor Xiaoxian did not know what Elder Zhu meant, so he did not continue. He just picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Elder Zhu continued, Your Majesty Xiaoxian, although the East Phoenix Kingdom is not big, it is very rich. If the rulers can take the East Phoenix Kingdom, then it will not be comparable to a spirit stone mine. Emperor Xiaoxian's heart thumped as expected. The little girl was right. The Li Hen Palace was indeed trying to sow discord. He wanted to hear what he had to say next. Thus, Emperor Xiaoxian's face showed a troubled expression. Elder Zhu, this is not good, right? After all, the East Phoenix Kingdom is one of the 9 nations, and it is also under the Li Hen Palace's rule. If a war were to break out, it would be very difficult for the Li Hen Palace. Moreover, although the East Phoenix Kingdom is slightly weaker, Artsong Heaven Kingdom might not be able to take it down in a short period of time. When Elder Zhu heard Emperor Xiaoxian's words, he could not help but feel proud in his heart. Human nature was indeed greedy, and this Emperor Xiaoxian was already tempted. Your Majesty Xiaoxian, your words are wrong. Our Li Hen Palace has never participated in the conflicts between your countries, so our Li Hen Palace will not interfere in the affairs of the East Phoenix Kingdom. Besides, although your Tsong Heaven Kingdom is not confident of taking down the East Phoenix Kingdom, you can still join forces with the other 7 countries to go against the East Phoenix Kingdom. 8 against 1, you will definitely win. Elder Zhu instigated. Emperor Xiaoxian's face showed a pensive look. And then he said, This, I will think about it and then make a decision. Elder Zhu pursed his lips in his heart. He was sure that Emperor Xiaoxian would agree in the end, so he did not say anything more. Instead, he changed the topic and talked about something else. After sending Elder Zhu off, Emperor Xiaoxian ran to the camp of the Changing Heaven Kingdom next door. The Tsong Heaven Kingdom and the Changing Heavens Kingdom had always been on good terms. So Emperor Xiaoxian did not beat around the bush and directly asked, Has the Li Hen Palace sent people to look for you? The monarch of the Changing Heavens Kingdom, Emperor Jinglai, nodded and said, They have just left for a short while, and all they are doing is instigating me to join forces with the 7 kingdoms to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom. Why? Has the Li Hen Palace sent people to look for you as well? Emperor Xiaoxian nodded. With some doubts he said, The situation here is basically the same as yours, but I don't understand why the Li Hen Palace is so scheming to have us deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom. Could it be that they are holding the Spirit Stone Convention just to encourage us to deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom? Emperor Jinglai frowned and said, This is also something that I can't figure out. If they want to encourage us to deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom, they could have sent an envoy to our country. Why would they need to go through all this trouble and even set up a few spirit veins? The two of them couldn't figure out the reason, so they simply sent someone to invite the other 6 monarchs over. When everyone realized that their situations were similar, they couldn't help but start discussing. After discussing for a while, the monarch of the Yutian Kingdom said, Recalling what the female emperor of the Zephyr Kingdom said before, I've raised the Li Hen Palace to play a very big chess game. First of all, since there are prizes in the Spirit Stone Convention, we will definitely fight over who is better and who is worse, which will naturally hurt the harmony between us. When the time comes after we take down the East Phoenix Kingdom, due to the division of interests, we will definitely widen the gap between us. Who knows, we might even have to fight each other. When the time comes, if we kill each other, wouldn't the Li Hen Palace just sit back and reap the benefits? In fact, the East Phoenix Kingdom is nothing more than a bait to lure us in. The Li Hen Palace has been setting up for so many years, and it is finally time to pull in the net. The situation of our countries is very worrying. That's right. Each of our countries has the imperial advisors sent by the Lihan Palace. Their status is high, even better than the words of our emperor. Once the Lihan Palace really wants to make a move, once those imperial advisors incite us, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on to the throne anymore, Emperor Xiaoxian said worriedly. Emperor Jinglai snorted coldly. I've long disliked those imperial advisors. They rely on the Lihan Palace and the secret method to communicate with the godly beasts to be extremely arrogant. As the saying goes, there is no two masters in the country. They are simply the second emperor. The more they talked, the more dissatisfied they became with the Lihan Palace. This was also because He Xinzhou had successfully brainwashed them previously, so no matter how they looked at it, they felt that the Lihan Palace had a conspiracy. Everyone, we have talked so much. The most important thing is, how should we reply to the Lihan Palace? Are we really going to let them order us around to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom? Emperor Xiaoxian said. Everyone was dumbfounded. That's right, even if they knew that this was the Lihan Palace's scheme, what could they do? Were they going to openly disobey the Lihan Palace's orders? Although the words that the Li Hateful Palace sent out were tactful, it was clearly an order. Regardless of whether they agreed or not, they could only agree in the end. The 8 monarchs immediately felt extremely stifled in their hearts. They were all monarchs of a country, yet they were actually forced to the point where they had no way out. It was simply depressing to the extreme. Everyone, since that female emperor of Zephyr had sent us over to speak with her, she must have already anticipated the situation of their East Phoenix country. Therefore, her true intention should be to join forces with the 8 kingdoms to deal with the Lihan Palace. How about this? If the people from the Lihan Palace come to ask, we will just give them a perfunctory answer. After this Spirit Stone Convention is over, we will discuss our countermeasures. In order to prevent the people from the Lihan Palace from suspecting us, during the Spirit Stone Convention, our few kingdoms will join forces to target the East Phoenix Kingdom. This is also a good opportunity to test the strength of that female Emperor of Zephyr and her fiancé, Emperor Xiaoxian said. The others naturally understood the underlying meaning behind Emperor Xiaoxian's words. He wanted to see the strength of the East Phoenix Kingdom before deciding whether to submit to the Lihan Palace or join forces with the East Phoenix Kingdom to deal with the Lihan Palace. Everyone nodded in agreement and dispersed. A spirit bee that was very similar in color to the dried leaf grass flew out from a crack in the tent and flew to the East Phoenix Kingdom's base. The spirit bee landed in He Xinjia's palm. After He Xinzhou found out about the conversation between the 8 country rulers through her divine sense, she could not help but curl the corners of her mouth. She wanted to test the depth of her relationship with the gigolo? Then she would give it a try. He Xinzhou released the spirit bee in her hand once again. It would be good to hold a meeting in a place like the wild. Occasionally, there would be a spirit bee that would not arouse the suspicion of others. It could be used as a secret agent for her. He Xinzhou decided that this time, she did not need to win everything. Yiding had won. She wanted to go on stage with her real identity. This time she wanted to amaze the entire southern continent and make everyone admire her talent. In the past, she hid her strength and bided her time because there was no guarantee. Now it was different. She was already the monarch of the first-class country, the East Phoenix country. Moreover, she had a gigolo to protect her. What was there to be afraid of? In addition, her spirit energy was too low. If she did not reveal some of her true abilities, it would be difficult for the other 8 countries' monarchs to trust her. Therefore, she could show off properly. When He Xinzhou thought of this, she wished that she could immediately hold the so-called Spirit Stone Convention, so that she could display her abilities. The next day, the Spirit Stone Convention officially began. This was the first time He Xinzhou met the Lihan Palace's palace master. To be honest, this fellow was very disappointed. She had originally thought that the palace master of the Li Hate Palace must be an outstanding figure. Who would have thought that he was actually just an ordinary-looking middle-aged man? However, that was also true. The palace master of the Li Hate Palace was a puppet of the 9 pavilions. As long as he was obedient, it would be fine. As for what he could do, it didn't matter. However, He Xinzhou felt that the man had an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was really strange. She had never seen the palace master of the Lihen Palace before, so how could she feel that he was somewhat familiar? He Xinzhou felt that this was an illusion, so she threw this thought to the back of her mind. The palace master of the Lihen Palace said a few polite words, and then announced the official start of the Spirit Stone Convention. The host stepped onto the high platform and first introduced the competition items. It was basically no different from the Four Kingdoms convention that He Xinzhou had participated in before. It was nothing more than array formations, alchemy, talisman making, weapon refining, beast taming and spirit power competition. The host emphasized on introducing the prizes of the competition. As soon as the names of the few mineral veins were announced, it immediately caused everyone to cry out in surprise. This time, the Lihen Palace had put in a lot of capital. The prizes were all mineral veins with abundant spirit stones reserves. Just as everyone was exclaiming in surprise, the host brought up another piece of news that left everyone dumbstruck. It was that the Lihe Palace would also send people to participate in all the competitions. What? The people from the Lihe Palace will also participate? Then can our 9 kingdoms still win? That's right. Who doesn't know that the Lihe Palace has many talents? Who can compete with them? No wonder the Lihe Palace took out so many mineral veins as prizes. Turns out that they are planning to win them back. Isn't this too much? At this moment, the host continued, although the people of the Lihe Palace participate in the competition, their results are not included in the prize list. In other words, even if the people of the Lihe Palace win the first place, the countries that are ranked second can still win the first prize. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they understood the Lihe Palace's intentions. They wanted to intimidate the 9 nations so that they would not have any rebellious thought. He Xinzhou curled her lips. The Lihe Palace had a good plan. Unfortunately, they had met a little expert like her. They could only consider themselves unlucky. The 8 country emperors also understood the Lihe Palace's intentions. Their hearts trembled. Were they planning to intimidate them? Even though they were indignant, they could only admit that the Lihen Palace's strength was definitely higher than any of their countries, and the first place in these few battles would probably go to the Lihen Palace. As expected, in the first array competition, the Lihen Palace obtained the first place with an absolute advantage. The Zhong Heaven Kingdom's participant obtained the second place, and the Yutian Kingdom obtained the third place. As for the East Feng Kingdom, Yong obtained the 10th place, which was also the last place. Emperor Xiao Xian and the others recalled their previous agreement, and each and every one of them said sarcastically, "Emperor Fenghua, your East Phoenix Kingdom is really humble. Don't tell me that you will always be in the last place in the next few matches?" That's right. Although our 9 countries rarely compete on the same stage, we have held a few matches in the past, and your East Phoenix Kingdom has always been in the last place. Your results are really stable. Your Majesty Fenghua, I heard that there are a few little girls who have won in your third-grade countries. Did you bring them along this time? However, it's useless even if we brought them along. After all, those little girls are only showing off in third-grade countries. They're not even enough to be compared to first-grade countries. Prime Minister Sima and the others were all red in the face. How could their Majesty stand being humiliated like this in public by the other 8 first-grade countries' rulers? These people had obviously underestimated their emperor's thick skin. They could only see a faint smile hanging on their emperor's face. He said indifferently, "What you all said is right. Our East Phoenix country is a country of etiquette. This competition was deliberately won last place. In the next few rounds of the competition, our East Phoenix country will definitely not concede. All the first places will belong to our East Phoenix country. Just don't cry after losing. The 8 countries' rulers. You're the one who's crying after losing." This female emperor of Zephyr was really shameless. Wasn't she afraid that the wind would blow her tongue out, and all the first places would belong to their East Phoenix country? Even if the East Phoenix country had dog shit and luck that was even better than their 8 countries, how could it possibly be able to compete with the Lihen Palace? It was really a fool's dream. After everyone had a simple lunch, the second round of the alchemy competition began. The contestants from all the countries stepped onto the competition stage one after another. As there were too many countries participating in the competition, each country was only allowed to send 3 contestants. The host called out the names according to the name list. When he saw the last name, he could not help but be stunned. He paused for a moment before continuing. Contestant number 30, the East Phoenix country's glorious female emperor. Emperor Jinglai, who was drinking tea, spat out a mouthful of tea. What kind of joke was this? The Eastern Phone Kingdom was going to send their female emperor of Zephyr to participate in the pill refining competition? According to the information gathered, this female emperor of Zephyr had been refining pills in the imperial palace for no reason, so much so that there was no way to live in the imperial palace anymore, because this fellow would always burn the pills. This kind of thing was still participating in the competition? Was she planning to lose face in front of everyone in the sky-high continent's southern continent? The other monarchs were also dumbfounded. Was this girl crazy? Wasn't this a show-off? Wasn't she afraid that her prestige would be lowered because of this matter? Prime Minister Sima was stunned at first. Then his tears flowed down. No wonder His Majesty had asked him to gather a lot of books on pill refinement. It was actually her intention to participate in the competition. Your Majesty, what are you doing? Are you planning to use the concocted pills to smoke everyone away? Just as everyone was discussing, Empress Jo slowly stood up from her seat and slowly walked to the bottom of the competition stage. She gracefully leaped onto the competition stage. Her red clothes were fluttering in the wind, and her beauty was unparalleled. For a moment, everyone stopped talking. The host was also stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and said loudly, "Since all the contestants have arrived, the alchemy competition will begin immediately. The content of the alchemy competition is the level 26 9 revolutions breaking adversity pill. The time limit is 4 hours, and the final ranking will be based on the rate of completion of the pill, the quality of the pill, and the length of time used. The competition will begin now." When everyone heard the content of the competition, they couldn't help but discuss among themselves. The level 26 9 revolutions adversity pill could be said to be of a very high grade. They didn't know what kind of result these contestants would produce in the end. Of course, most of the people's gazes fell on Empress Jo. Did this empress really know how to refine pills? What kind of result could she obtain? Very quickly, everyone was dumbfounded when they realized that the empress had raised her claws. The host was stunned and asked, "Contestant number 30, do you have any questions?" "Well, I don't know the formula for the level 26 9 revolutions esoteric pill. Can I flip through a book to look for it?" The host never dreamed that someone would make such a request. He could only look at the judges, who were also staring at each other. The last old man said, "There is no rule that forbids reading books, so contestant no. 30 you can flip through the book and look for the formula." Below the stage, Prime Minister Sima was about to cry. "Your Majesty, you are playing tricks. You can't just say that you don't know how to do it. Why are you flipping through the book? Could it be that you can refine it just by looking at the formula? Forget about you, even if an alchemy master were to remove the new formula, they would still need to test it several times before they could succeed." Emperor Jinglai and the other 8 monarchs exchanged a glance. This Empress Fenghua was too unruly. Could they trust such a person? It seemed that it would be better for them to seek refuge with the Lihen Palace. A certain Jiao raised her eyes and glanced at a certain Jiao who was pretending to flip through the books. She silently sighed. This little scoundrel was simply unscrupulous in order to gain the limelight. Couldn't she just refine pills properly? A certain Jiao frowned slightly. It seemed that she had to be talked about tonight. Otherwise, she would have to make even more trouble in the next few competitions. In fact, a certain Jiao had really misunderstood He Xinjiao. He Xinjiao had been too busy these days. She really did not know the formula for the 9 transformation misfortune pill. Fortunately, this fellow had gotten Prime Minister Sima to collect a lot of books on pill refinement and talisman making. He just happened to take it out to sharpen his spear in the nick of time. Cough cough, even if it wasn't fast, it was still light. Under everyone's stunned gazes, He Xinjiao took out a thick stack of books from her storage ring and began to rummage through them. Everyone, Prime Minister Sima wished he could shout, "Your Majesty, please be more careful." The book in your hand was a talisman script. He wasn't the only one. Almost everyone's eyes twitched. Could it be that the female emperor of Zephyr didn't know how to read? The book in her hand had the complete collection of talismans written on the cover. Even if they could tell the difference, they wouldn't be able to find the formula for the 9 transformations Erden. The other contestants on the stage inadvertently caught a glimpse of this fellow's behavior. Other than the contestants from the East Phoenix country, they all scoffed. Was this female emperor of Zephyr here to embarrass herself? Of course, the 2 contestants from the East Phoenix kingdom also felt as if their hearts were going to explode. Their majesty was so incongruous. They had to perform exceptionally well. Otherwise, the last 3 places would all belong to their East Phoenix kingdom. It was simply too embarrassing. Those contestants quickly regained their focus and began to concentrate on refining the pills. Only He Xinjiu was still flipping through the books on the table. Jing Lai and the others pursed their lips. This female emperor of Zephyr was really out of tune. She had lost a lot of face this time. TSK. Do you think this female emperor of Zephyr wants to keep flipping through the books until the end of the competition? Jing Lai said disdainfully. It's really possible. I saw that she thought the topic was very simple. When she went up, she found out that she was refining a level 26-9 revolutions adversity pill. So she found an excuse to pass the time, Emperor Xiaoxian echoed. The other country monarchs also chimed in. That's right, this female emperor of Fenghua is really embarrassing. She didn't have the ability to go up and show off. Serves her right. Just as they were talking enthusiastically, they suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill. Then they saw a certain someone looking at them indifferently, but that gaze was as if he was looking at a dead person. Emperor Jing Lai and the others immediately shut up. Oh my God! Why was this man so scary? Just a glance at him made them feel as if they had lost half their lives. At this moment, an hour had passed since the start of the competition. Empress Zhou was still randomly flipping through the books on the table. She even raised her claws and asked midway, "Host, I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Can I eat something?" Xue Wuji almost spat out the tea in his mouth. Haven't eaten? Little sister Zhou, is it really alright for you to lie through your teeth like this? You clearly ate more in the morning than that facial paralysis. The host looked at the judges with a dumbfounded expression. Those judges were already speechless and nodded at him. As a result, He Xinjiu chewed on a fruit while flipping through the books. She was extremely carefree. Prime Minister Sima and the others were already too ashamed to look at it anymore. Their Majesty was probably having a stroke again. In any case, they were already used to it. They could do whatever they wanted to do. Their Majesty wasn't afraid of losing face, so what was there to be afraid of? Another hour passed. He Xinjiu finally flipped through all the books on the table before randomly putting them into her storage ring. Everyone thought that she should start refining pills this time. Who would have thought that this guy would take out a recliner and lie down on it, basking in the sun? Di Baiming glared at He Xinjiu, who was on the stage. This little rascal was getting more and more out of control. He Xinjiu looked in a certain direction as if she had sensed something. When she caught a certain person's cold gaze, she sheepishly put away the recliner and took out the hot pot and pill refining dual-use pill refining furnace. He Xinjiu looked at the alchemy furnace in her hand and frowned. She saw that there was a gap in the alchemy furnace. It was obviously caused by a bite from the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace. Only then did this guy remember that he had not replenished the alchemy furnace for a long time. No wonder the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace did not let go of this hot pot's alchemy furnace. She scanned her storage ring with her spiritual sense. All that was left was this pill furnace with a gap. The guy frowned, raised a claw to say, "Host, my alchemy furnace is broken. Can I borrow an alchemy furnace from others?" Host, as an alchemist, you don't even know the furnace is broken? Moreover, who could tell him what was going on with the few vegetable leaves hanging on the alchemy furnace? The host could only look at the judges again. Those judges were probably annoyed by He Xinjiu's repeated requests. The elderly judge said coldly, "The alchemy furnace is related to the result of the competition. You can't borrow it from others. Just use the cracked alchemy furnace." He Xinjiu curled her lips. "If you don't want to exchange it, then don't. I can blind all of you even with this broken alchemy furnace. Therefore, This fellow took out a large basin and randomly washed the cracked alchemy furnace before starting to refine the pills. Everyone saw that Empress Jo didn't care about the order in which the pills were put in. She stuffed the herbs into the cracked alchemy furnace, and then watched the show while nibbling on the spirit fruits. Everyone had a look of understanding on their faces. This female emperor of Zephyr was planning to give up everything. However, it was also true. She had found the formula on the spot, and the pill furnace had a gap, so it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. However, Prime Minister Sima was dumbfounded. This scene was too familiar. The pill furnace, which had vegetables in it, stuffed all the herbs into it. Wasn't this the way of winning all the herbs? Could it be? Prime Minister Sima's eyes narrowed. Could it be that their Majesty was actually pretending to win all the herbs in the previous Four Nations Grand Meeting? There was also Yi Dingjing and Bai Shuiying. Could it be that both of them were their Majesty? Prime Minister Sima thought about it again. When the three winners appeared, their Majesty had found an excuse to stay in the garrison. Moreover, the expressions of those three winners were very similar to their Majesties. Prime Minister Sima stared at Empress Jo on the stage with his mouth agape. He had no words to describe his Majesty in his heart. Thousands of words converged into one sentence. His Majesty was simply too powerful to be human. When Emperor Jinglai and the others saw the expression of Prime Minister Sima as if he had seen a ghost, they couldn't help but look at each other. They wanted to mock him, but when they saw a certain someone, they immediately swallowed their words. At this moment, the crowd let out a cry of surprise. They saw that Empress Jo had actually opened the lid of the cauldron and added a few more medicinal herbs into it. Could it be that this female emperor of Zephyr didn't know that opening the lid of the cauldron midway was a major taboo in alchemy? However, it was also true. Her cauldron had a gap to begin with, so it didn't matter whether she opened the lid or not. As time passed, the medicinal fragrance on the stage became more and more intense. Everyone's gaze shifted from Empress Jo to the three competitors from the Li Hate Palace. Everyone felt that the first to complete the refinement would definitely be the three participants from the Li Hate Palace. As for the remaining participants, they could only compete for the fourth place. Among the three participants from the Li Hate Palace, the oldest, Zhong Mao, was even more confident. He scanned his surroundings and felt that his progress was the fastest. The first place belonged to him. Just as Zhong Mao was about to signal for him to complete the refinement, he heard a crisp voice, "Host, I've completed the refinement. Remember, I'm the first one to complete it." Zhong Mao followed the voice and looked over, his nose almost going crooked from anger. The one who raised her claws was the female emperor of Zephyr. Was it her? And the refinement was completed? She was purely trying to stir up trouble for him. Forget it. In any case, the final assessment of the results didn't just depend on the length of time. Everyone looked at Empress Jo. However, almost everyone thought that Empress Jo was just fooling around and that it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. Prime Minister Sima's forehead and palms were covered in sweat. On one hand he was nervous, on the other hand he was excited. His Majesty might really succeed in refining it. After all, when her spiritual power was so low, she was able to completely defeat other people. This time she should be able to do it too, right? On the stage, one after another, contestants indicated that they had finished refining. The host memorized the sequence one by one, and his gaze would occasionally glance at Empress Jo in the corner. This was because this fellow was currently sitting on a chair, leisurely eating melon seeds. He didn't seem like he was here to compete, but rather he seemed like he was here to watch a show. Finally, the stipulated time limit was up. The judges started to assess the contestants' results from contestant number 1. Zhong Mao was contestant number 1. Contestant number 1, Li Hengong Zhong Mao, has a 100% pill success rate, 7 high-grade pills, 3 middle-grade pills, and 44 points. The moment the host's words left his mouth, everyone was in an uproar. Oh my God! A 100% pill success rate? This was too unbelievable. Moreover, the high-grade elixirs accounted for 70% of the total. This was definitely the best. Jinglai Di and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and bitterness. The Li Hate Palace was much stronger than their countries. Not to mention anything else, just their alchemy skills were not a little inferior. Only Hei Shinjo curled her lips. Not to mention anything else, this point was unlucky. 44 points. She was dead. As expected, other than the 2 contestants from the Lee Hate Palace who had decent results, the majority of the remaining contestants had an 80% success rate. Among them, there were only about 4 or 5 high-grade pills. The difference between them and Zhong Mao was very obvious. Zhong Mao's face was very proud. The people from these countries were not on the same level as the Lee Hate Palace. The Lee Hate Palace could easily trample them under their feet. There was only one contestant left on the stage whose results had yet to be announced, and that was Empress Jiu, who was currently munching on melon seeds. Empress Jiu saw the judges walking over. This fellow kept the melon seeds and chairs into his storage ring, then stood in front of the operating table with his head held high and chest puffed out, waiting for the judges to announce the results. When the judges saw Hei Xinjia's confident look, the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Where did this Empress of Zephyr's confidence come from? The referees had already prepared for the pill furnace to be filled with only a piece of charred medicinal liquid. However, when one of the referees lifted the lid of the pill furnace, he widened his eyes in horror and didn't speak for a long time. When the other referees saw the strange look on his face, they also came over and were all stunned on the spot. When Zhong Mao saw this, he pursed his lips. These referees were really rare and strange. He reckoned that the Zephyr female emperor had burned the medicinal liquid. What was there to see? It was more important to quickly announce that he was first place. Thus, he coughed and said, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor of Zephyr? It can't be a 0, right?" The judges were shocked by Zhong Mao's voice, and only then did they regain their senses. However, no one paid any attention to him. Instead, they looked at the calm and composed Empress Jiu in shock. "Your Majesty Fenghua, I didn't expect your alchemy skills to be so superb. You really don't show your true colors," the elderly judge praised. If an ordinary person heard such words, they would definitely say something modest. However, Empress Jiu was obviously not a modest person. This fellow sighed and said, "Actually, I can do better. It's just that the alchemy furnace has a gap, so my results are just so now." The judges. If it was before, these judges would have scolded this Fenghua female emperor for bragging about her shamelessness. However, in front of the dazzling results, this kind of zhongyang had become a display of confidence. Each and every one of them was praising her, as if they did not care about money. The audience below the stage did not understand what was going on. Why did it sound like the female emperor had really succeeded? Moreover, her results seemed to be pretty good. When Zhong Mao saw that no one was paying attention to him, he could not take it anymore. He raised his voice and asked again, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor?" The host had long disliked this arrogant Zhong Mao. He thought to himself, "I have seen people who are anxious, but this is the first time I have seen someone who is so anxious to slap his own face." He asked the elderly judge in a low voice, and then announced loudly, "Contestant number 30, the Eastern Phoenix country's female emperor of magnificence, has a 100% completion rate, 3 superior grade pills, 7 superior grade pills and 65 points. Boom! Both on and off the stage were instantly in an uproar. A 100% completion rate wasn't scary. What was scary was that this female emperor of magnificence had actually refined 3 superior grade pills. And with that broken pill furnace? Heavens, they weren't afraid of not knowing the goods, but they were afraid of comparing goods. Previously, they had thought that Zhong Mao from the Li Hen Palace was simply a peerless genius, but now that they saw him, he wasn't even fit to carry the shoes of the female emperor of Zephyr. And he even said that the female emperor of Zephyr had scored 0 points. How shameless! Those people from the East Feng Kingdom were all beaming with red light, their heads held high and their chests puffed out. Did you see that? Their Majesty was indeed awesome. What was wrong with the formula? What was wrong with eating fruits while refining pills? What was wrong with using a pill refining furnace with a gap? Wasn't the first pill refining furnace Their Majesty's? You stupid humans don't know what Their Majesty is capable of. What's wrong with these words? Their Majesty seems to be a human as well? Emperor Jinglai and the others were also shocked. That girl was actually so powerful? Could it be that she was looking for the formula and eating fruits on purpose? Was she just teasing them? As Empress Jo's points were very high, the total points of East Phoenix Country jumped to the first place in the alchemy competition, causing the people of East Phoenix Country to cheer and cheer. Prime Minister Sima was practically in tears. Their Majesty could always bring them hope and surprise in a desperate situation. Having such a majesty was a great blessing for East Phoenix Country. Although He Xinjiu was very proud in her heart, she still pretended to be unperturbed as she walked down the stage and returned to her seat. However, after this fellow sat down, he stretched out his claw and poked a certain honored guest's hand. When a certain honored guest looked at her, this fellow smiled at a certain honored guest, feeling very proud. When a certain honored guest saw He Xinjiu's smug little appearance, his heart trembled. He sensed that the seal had loosened again, so he quickly held his breath and focused his mind, not looking at He Xinjiu anymore. The crowd's discussion had not yet subsided. Some people even felt that the reason why He Xinjiu was able to refine a transcendent-grade medicinal pill was probably due to a gap in the pill refining furnace. Therefore, not long after, Towering Sky Continent's southern continent began to become popular with a pill refining furnace with a gap. As the sky gradually turned dark, the host announced that the competition for today was over, and that the competition would continue the next day. The crowd dispersed and He Xinjiu returned to the East Phoenix Country's base. Naturally, she was blindly worshipped by Prime Minister Sima and the others. At this moment, in the eyes of the people of the East Phoenix Country, their empress was simply omnipotent. As long as their empress wanted to, she could even get her hands on Wu Yun, much less anything else. Whoever went against their empress would be courting death. Alright, Empress Jo had successfully developed her subjects into her hardcore fans. After dinner, just as He Xinjiu was about to say something, a certain someone said with a slightly gloomy face, "You should have a good competition when you are competing. Why are you always playing tricks? Aren't you afraid of making things worse?" He Xinjiu looked aggrieved. "I'm not playing tricks. I really don't know the formula of the 9 transformation breaking Yuden." A certain someone snorted coldly. "What about eating fruits and cracking melon seeds?" He Xinjiu touched her nose guiltily. "This isn't considered a trick, right? I'm just killing time. Those people are too weak. If I do my best, I'll beat them until they have nothing left to live for." A certain someone. "Don't participate in the next competition. You've achieved your goal anyway. It's not necessarily a good thing to be in the limelight," a certain someone said in a deep voice. Although He Xinjiu looked reluctant, she could only say when she saw the gloomy expression of a certain someone, "Alright, if you don't want to participate, then don't. I'm happy to be at ease." The next morning, the talisman competition was the first to be held. Although He Xinjiu's hand was itchy, she didn't go on stage to compete. Instead, she played with a certain someone's finger casually. This guy looked at a certain finger with distinct joints and cursed in his heart. Damn it, it was really unfair. It was fine that the gigolo was good-looking, but why was his hand so good-looking? Fortunately, she made the first move and got the gigolo. Otherwise, who knew which little vixen would benefit from it? This guy suddenly remembered something. The seal of the gigolo was broken bit by bit. Would there be a fiancé or something like a white lotus in the future? He Xinjiu suddenly felt uncomfortable when she thought of this. She took out Di Biming's voice transmission talisman and asked, "Prince Charming, will there be a fiancé or something like that when you remove the seal in the future?" A certain being felt the vibration of the voice transmission talisman. When he saw that it was sent by He Xinjiu, he could not help but be speechless. She was clearly right beside him, yet she was still sending out the voice transmission talisman. Was she bored? A certain being sent his spiritual sense in. When he heard He Xinjiu's words, his face could not help but stiffen. Why did she think of such a weird question when she was just watching the competition? Although a certain being did not want to pay attention to her, when he saw that she was looking at him with puppy-like wet eyes, he could only use his spiritual sense to say, "No, I was not interested in women in the past." Hearing the words of a certain someone, He Xinjiu felt relieved at first. Then her eyes revealed a gossipy light. Was she not interested in women? Could it be that the gigolo liked men in the past? Although a certain someone didn't know what this guy was thinking, he knew that she was not thinking of anything good when he saw her sinister smile. A certain someone frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "I have no intention of starting a family in the past, so you don't have to worry about my fiancé or anything like that after I unseal it, because you are the only exception." Hei Shinjo was stunned, and then a trace of sweetness rose in her heart. She picked up a certain someone's hand and kissed it. Prime Minister Sima coincidentally saw this scene. The old man was so embarrassed that his face turned red. His Majesty is too unrestrained. His Majesty, this is under the eyes of everyone. No matter how fierce you are, you have to be careful. He forced himself to look at the competition stage, so as not to be scared by His Majesty's shamelessness. At this moment, the talisman seal competition on the competition stage was ongoing. The time limit was still 4 hours. The prescribed topic was the level 20,000 feet Earth Shield talisman. The final result was calculated by the number and quality of the talisman seals. The 3 contestants from the Li Hen Palace were the fastest. They had each completed 1,000 feet Earth Shield talisman. The remaining 9 countries were all about the same speed. However, Prime Minister Sima knew that their East Phoenix country's talisman-making skills were slightly weaker than the other countries. This round of talisman-making competition would most likely be at the bottom. Thinking of this, the old man could not help but look at Empress Jo, who was throwing dog food at him. His Majesty clearly had a super talent in talisman-making, so why didn't he participate in this round of talisman-making competition? Could it be that he wanted to get intimate with young Master D? He really only loved handsome men and didn't love the country. Hei Shinjo saw that a certain someone's face was a little pale, and knew that she had probably loosened the seal on the gigolo again. This guy could only let go of a certain someone's hand in embarrassment. This guy was really helpless in his heart. She didn't do anything. Wasn't it just a few kisses on the gigolo's hand? Wasn't it just a few flirtatious glances? Why did the seal loosen? The gigolo's self-control was really getting worse and worse. If a certain someone knew what this guy was thinking, he would probably strangle her to death. Hei Shinjo could no longer be intimate with a certain someone, so she could only look at the competition stage. She had never drawn a level 20,000 feet Earth Shield talisman before, but when she was looking for a prescription yesterday, she took a glance at it. She estimated that she could easily draw a transcendent grade talisman. It was a pity that the pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Her talent could only be covered in dust. For hours later, the talisman competition ended. The final result was as everyone had expected. 3 contestants from the Li Hate Palace had once again taken the top 3 spots, and 3 contestants from the East Phoenix Kingdom had tragically won the last 3 spots. Emperor Jinglai and the others looked at Empress Jo with gloating expressions. However, they didn't dare to say anything because of a certain someone. They only used their expressions to express their disdain. Hei Shinjo was so angry. Fuck, if it weren't for the pretty boy stopping her, she would have used her results to torture these scum to death. Just as Hei Shinjo was fuming with anger, she heard a contestant from the Li Hate Palace on the competition stage say arrogantly, "It's not that I, Zhuiji, don't speak well. It's just that your 9 nations are really too terrible. Especially the East Phoenix country. The total points of the 3 of them combined are not even greater than mine alone. It's simply ridiculous." The faces of the 3 East Phoenix countries' contestants turned red, especially the face of one of the men. When he was making talismans, he might have been too nervous. The first few talismans could not be successfully drawn, and in the end, he only managed to draw 2 talismans. That was why the East Feng Kingdom's points were so ugly. Zhuiji saw the expressions of the 3 contestants from the East Feng Kingdom, and could not help but feel even more proud. Isn't your East Feng Kingdom's female Emperor of Zephyr very powerful? Why didn't she participate in the talisman-making competition this time? In my opinion, yesterday's alchemy competition was just a blind cat meeting a dead rat. Your East Feng Kingdom is just a bunch of trash. Hei Shinjo was already filled with anger, but when she heard Zhu Yixi's words, her small face instantly darkened. Damn it, she had originally planned to keep a low profile, but now it seemed that some people really deserved a beating. He Xinzhou suddenly stood up, and instantly everyone's gazes turned to her. She sneered, Juiji? A pig? Your name really matches your name. The Lihan Palace has always taken good care of our 9 nations, and we have always respected the Lihan Palace. I didn't expect that you didn't take our 9 nations seriously at all. I am, after all, the monarch of the East Phoenix Kingdom, and you have been slandering me on the stage. It seems that our 9 nations don't have any status in the eyes of the Lihan Palace, which is really disappointing. Emperor Jinglai and the others were actually feeling very uncomfortable. The people of the hateful palace were too arrogant. The fox mourns the death of the hare. If the hateful palace could treat the female emperor like this, their situation would probably not be any better when the East Phoenix Kingdom was destroyed in the future. Zhu Yixi's face immediately turned pale. Although the hateful palace indeed looked down on the 9 kingdoms, there were some things that could not be said openly. He rolled his eyes. He tried to explain. Your Majesty Fenghua, you have misunderstood what I meant. What I said just now was only directed at the talisman-making competition. The truth is right here. Your East Phoenix country's talisman-making results are really a little shabby. Don't tell me that you won't allow others to say it? Everyone knew that Zhuiji was secretly changing the concept and twisting the facts, but no one made a sound because no one was willing to provoke the Lihan Palace. Yun Chuzhou coldly glanced at Zhuiji, who was fearless, and said indifferently, "Oh? Only for the talisman-making competition? Then if my talisman-making skills are better than yours, does it matter if I kill you?" Zhuiji didn't expect Yun Chuzhou to say such a thing. He immediately became unable to back down. If he didn't agree, then what he said before was a slap to his face. If he agreed, what if the female emperor Fenghua really defeated him? Wouldn't his life be in danger? Before he could decide whether to agree or not, Yun Chuzhou had already leaped onto the stage and said with a sneer, "Didn't you just say that I was a blind cat that met a dead rat? Why, are you even worse than a dead rat?" Zhuiji was provoked by He Xinzhou and couldn't hold back. He thought to himself that he had never heard that the Zephyr female emperor knew how to make talismans. She was probably just trying to scare him. Moreover, he still had a trump card. Even if the Zephyr female emperor was very good at making talismans, she wouldn't be a match for him. Zhuiji thought of this and his expression became arrogant again. Alright, since Her Majesty wants to compete, I'll play along. However, the content of our competition isn't a level 20,000 feet Earth Shield talisman, but a level 23 Heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Does Her Majesty Fenghua dare to compete? The crowd below the stage immediately burst into a clamor as they discussed animatedly. A level 23 Heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Isn't this grade a little too high? Most people probably haven't even seen it before, let alone drawing it. That's right, even in places that specialize in selling talismans, it's very difficult to find a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. This is a talisman master's most prized treasure. Female Emperor Zephyr is going to fall for this. She definitely won't dare to agree because she will definitely lose. He Xinjia's heart felt like it was going to explode. Among the books that Prime Minister Sima had collected for her, the highest level of talismans was only level 21. She had never seen a heaven-shaking explosive talisman before, let alone know how to draw one. He Xinzhou was very melancholic in her heart. Just accept it. She didn't know how to draw a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman, but if she didn't accept it, wouldn't it be a slap to her own face? If she just rolled back to the viewing platform in dejection, how would she continue to survive in the future? How would she still be able to show off in front of the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom in the future? Zhuiji saw that He Xinzhou was silent for a long while, and his face revealed a smug expression. Why? Does Her Majesty Fenghua not dare to accept the challenge? So, it seems like what I said before was right. At least in terms of talisman-making techniques, your East Phoenix Kingdom is all trash. A stern look flashed across He Xinjia's eyes. This Zhuiji deserved to die. She curled the corners of her lips. Who said that I don't dare to accept you? I just want you to live a little longer. Since you want to die so badly, I will accept it now. Zhuiji curled his lips. He was certain that Yun Chujo was trying to put on an act because very few people knew about the drawing of the level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He had only learned it by chance, so this female emperor of Zephyr was definitely going to lose. The host was dumbfounded. Was she really going to compete? Just as he was at a loss, an elder from the Lihan Palace walked down the stage and nodded at him, indicating that their palace master had agreed to the competition. Hence, the host said, the time limit is 4 hours. The content of the competition is the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. The final result will be calculated based on the quantity and quality of the completed talisman. The competition will begin now. Yun Chujo stood behind her own operating table. Although she looked indifferent on the surface, her heart was like an ant on a hot pan. What the hell? What should she do? She did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. Moreover, there was no such thing as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman in the world. How could she know the drawing method of this heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Previously, the heavenly Dao Cliff had given her a talisman seal inheritance. Unfortunately, it was a heaven-grade talisman seal, and there was no such low-level talisman seal drawing technique as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. At this moment, Zhuizhi had already started drawing the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He looked very nervous, afraid that he would fail if there was even the slightest mistake. When the audience below the stage saw that He Xinzhou was still standing there calmly, with no intention to start drawing at all, someone curled his lips and said, "This female emperor of Zephyr Nation definitely doesn't know how to draw." If that's the case, why did she bring up the competition? Isn't this slapping herself in the face? That's right. The East Phoenix country's results aren't good to begin with. Don't tell me that others aren't allowed to say it? This female emperor of Zephyr Nation is really asking for trouble. In a while, if this female emperor of Zephyr Nation can't draw a single picture, won't it be very awkward? Therefore, people should be self-aware so as to avoid embarrassing themselves. When the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom heard their words, they were immediately filled with righteous indignation and refuted with full confidence, "Pooey. Don't spout nonsense. Our Majesty is omnipotent. What's a mere heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Our Majesty will draw 10 or 8 pieces and smash that pig to death. Right, Our Majesty will definitely win. Our Majesty has never failed before. In a while, we will let you know how powerful Our Majesty is." Exactly. The reason why His Majesty hasn't started drawing yet is to show His grace. Let the pig draw a few pictures first, and then His Majesty will draw again so that he will be convinced of his defeat. He Xinzhou pricked up her ears to hear the words of her brain-dead fan, and her heart felt like a beeping dog. Where did their confidence come from? She really didn't know how to draw this time. First, let that Zhuizhi draw to show his grace? Grace my ass. She was the one who didn't know how to draw. Just as He Xinzhou was cursing in her heart, a thought came to her mind. That's right. Let that Zhuizhi draw a picture first. Wouldn't she be able to learn how to draw? However, she and that Zhuizhi were arranged at both ends of the competition stage. Even if she stretched her neck, she wouldn't be able to see the contents of Zhu Yixi's drawing. This fellow blinked his eyes and left his operating table with his hands behind his back. He walked in front of Zhu Yixi's operating table and shamelessly stole a picture. However, Zhuizhi didn't know the true purpose of this fellow. After all, learning and selling the talisman on the spot wasn't suitable for talismans. Even the most talented person wouldn't be able to learn it after reading it once. Furthermore, this was a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Zhuizhi felt that Yun Chujo wanted to disturb him while he was making the talisman. He sneered in his heart. He had always been very calm. Not to mention the female emperor of Zephyr who was watching from the side. Even if she made a big fuss, she wouldn't be able to affect him. The onlookers had the same thoughts as Zhuizhi. They couldn't help but scoff. This female emperor of Zephyr Nation didn't know how to draw, so she went to disturb Zhu Yixi's talisman making. She was really wicked. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom said excitedly, "See? Our Majesty is really too smart. This is called strategy. What do you know? Your Majesty, you can't just stand there like this. If you scold that Zhuizhi a little, He won't be able to complete the talisman making. Right, Your Majesty, why don't you shout a few times to scare him to death? Empress Jiu. Her subjects were most likely led astray by her, right? He Xinzhou ridiculed in her heart as she watched Zhu Yixi's talisman-making process. This level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman was indeed very complicated. Beads of sweat were already oozing out from Zhu Yixi's forehead. Clearly he was having a hard time. Almost an hour had passed, and Zhu Yixi had finally completed a heaven-shaking explosive talisman. However, it was only a low-grade one. Zhu Yixi wiped the sweat on his forehead and glanced at Xinzhou in disdain. He snorted and said, "Do you think that you will affect me by distracting me like this? Dream on." He Xinzhou curled her lips. "Distract you? I just want to see how good you are. If I wanted to cause trouble, I wouldn't have been so quiet. Now, it seems that your level is really not good. You spent a long time to draw a low-grade talisman. You are really stupid and stupid." Just as Zhu Yixi was about to retort, he saw Empress Jiu jump back to her control panel with a whoosh. He could only snort coldly and continue to draw the talisman. After He Xinzhou returned to her control panel, she took out the talisman brush and started to draw the talisman. After a quarter of an hour, He Xinzhou casually placed the completed talisman aside and continued to draw. The people below the stage were very curious. How did the Zephyr female emperor finish drawing a shocking explosive talisman so quickly? How was this possible? Many people guessed that the talisman drawn by the Zephyr female emperor was definitely not a shocking explosive talisman. Perhaps it was some low-level talisman. After all, it took Zhu Yixi almost an hour to finish drawing one. How could she finish it so quickly? He Xinzhou drew 5 talismans and put away the talisman pin calmly. Then she took out the recliner and sat on it, munching on melon seeds. The audience felt that Yun Chuzhou did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. She only drew 5 talismans randomly to deal with it. This time she really slapped herself in the face. Zhu Yixi used the corner of his eye to glance at He Xinzhou leisurely munching on melon seeds. He couldn't help but twitch his lips. It seemed that this female emperor of Zephyr had given up completely. Finally, the 4-hour deadline came to an end. The host quickly announced Zhu Yixi's results. Lihen Palace's Zhu Yixi has successfully drawn 4 heaven-shaking explosive talismans, 2 of which are low-grade, 2 of which are middle-grade, and 10 points. The crowd below the stage cried out in surprise. Although it sounded like the quality of the talismans wasn't high, one had to know that these were level 23 talismans. 4 of them had all been successfully drawn, and 2 of them were middle-grade talismans. This was already very, very impressive. At this moment, everyone was certain that Zhu Yixi had won. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, although she had drawn several talismans, they were definitely other low-grade talismans. Her points would definitely be 0. Although those brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom were still bragging, they were more or less panicking in their hearts. Were the talismans drawn by their Majesty earth-shattering explosive talismans? Would their Majesty fail miserably this time? He Xinzhou put away the melon seeds and the reclining chair. Then she calmly looked at the judges and hosts who were walking over and slowly said, "He only has 10 points? It seems that I have overestimated him. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have drawn 5. I would have just drawn 3. The corners of the judges and hosts' eyes twitched. Just draw 3? She really dared to say that. If drawing 3 exceeded Zhu Yixi's points, then she would have drawn at least 1 upper grade and 2 middle grade. Was she talking nonsense? However, when they saw the 5 talismans on He Xinjia's table, they were all dumbfounded. After a long while, the host announced loudly, "The glorious female emperor of the East Phoenix country has successfully drawn 5 heaven-shaking explosive talismans. They are all upper-grade talismans with 25 points." After the host finished speaking, the audience fell silent. It was obvious that they had not reacted in time. However, it was immediately followed by an uproar. This was especially true for the hardcore fans of the East Phone Kingdom. Their faces were flushed red, and they wanted nothing more than to roar to express the excitement in their hearts. "Ha ha ha! Did you see that? Her Majesty Fenghua is indeed worthy of being the peerless female emperor. Who can topple kingdoms and cities? Who can be more powerful than Her Majesty? Who else? Who else? Once Her Majesty makes a move, who else can compete with her? That pig said that our emperor is a blind cat who met a dead rat? Phooey! He is a short-sighted fool. He has no right to talk about our emperor. Zhuiji did not believe the host's words at all. He staggered to He Xinjia's operating table and saw the impeccable 5 talismans on it. He immediately sat down on the ground. He had lost, completely lost. He Xinjia looked at him contemptuously and said indifferently, "I'll give you 2 paths. One path is to kneel down and apologize to the 9 countries, especially the subjects of the East Phoenix country. The second path is to die." Zhu Yixi's face was pale and his body was soaked in cold sweat. He turned his gaze to the Li Hate Palace's stands for help. Yun Chujiu snorted coldly. "What? Do you think the palace master of the Li Hate Palace will plead for you? Your vicious words have already destroyed the relationship between the Li Hate Palace and the 9 countries. How can the Li Hate Palace protect you? Hurry up and choose a path. I'm still in a hurry to eat lunch. I don't have the time to waste here with you." Zhuiji saw that no one from the Li Hate Palace had made an appearance and knew that he had already been abandoned. Naturally, he would not apologize. If that was the case, he would not be able to survive in the Li Hate Palace in the future. He decided to forcefully leave. He did not believe that the female emperor of Zephyr could really kill him in front of everyone. Moreover, even if she really dared to kill him, she was not his match. Thinking of this, Zhuiji jumped off the stage and prepared to return to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He didn't believe that the female emperor of Zephyr would be able to chase him to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He Xinjia was clearly dumbfounded. She didn't expect that Zhuiji would be so shameless. Was he planning to run away? The crowd below the stage also didn't expect such a result. For a moment, they stared blankly at Zhuiji as he walked towards the stands of the Li Hate Palace. At this moment, someone saw a ray of light shoot towards Zhuiji. Immediately after, they heard Zhu Yixi's miserable cry and then fell to the ground. He had actually died. Those who were close to Zhuiji discovered that there was a crystal-clear ice arrow stuck between Zhu Yixi's brows. Who did this? Although most people did not know who had killed Zhuiji, Emperor Jinglai and the others saw it clearly. All of them kept quiet out of fear. Oh God! Fortunately, they didn't offend the little girl and her fiancé. Otherwise, this fiend would have taken their lives with a raise of his hand. He was too powerful. He Xinjiu saw that Zhuiji was already dead. Naturally, this guy knew that it was Di Biming who did it. However, this guy took the opportunity and said, "Did you all see that? This Zhuiji has already lost, but he doesn't admit it. Therefore, he has been punished by the heavens. Therefore, you must keep your promises in the future, or you will be struck by lightning." Boom! A bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck Zhu Yixi's body. He Xinjiu! Everyone! He Xinjiu looked up at the sky. There were no clouds in the sky, and the sky was clear as water. It was as if the lightning just now was an illusion. Oh my God, did her jinx skill resurface? The onlookers looked at He Xinjiu with fear. They had heard that the Zephyr Queen was the messenger of the divine phoenix. Now that they looked at her, she was indeed extraordinary. That Zhuiji died because he did not keep his promise. He was struck by lightning after he died. How tragic! It seemed that it was better for them not to offend this female emperor of Zephyr in the future. Otherwise, they would either be shot to death by an ice arrow or be struck to death by lightning. Seeing this, Empress Jiu was very pleased with herself. She said to the dumbfounded host, "Don't forget to add my results to the total score of our East Phoenix Seal competition." Panda N0 won the host. "Is it really good for you to be so shameless? Do you think the other 8 countries are all fools?" Seeing that he didn't say anything, He Xinjiu curled the corners of her lips. "Why? Are you afraid that the other 8 countries will have an opinion? Your Majesty Jinglai, do you have an opinion?" Emperor Jinglai and the others shook their heads like rattledrums. What a joke! How could they dare to have an opinion? That fiend was sitting right next to them. If they had any objections, it might have directly taken their lives. Seeing that Jing Lai Di and the others had no objections, the host looked in the direction of the spectators' stand of the Li Hate Palace. Seeing that no one had any objections, he announced the results again. Because the East Phoenix Kingdom had additional points, they were immediately ranked ahead of the other 8 kingdoms. He Xinzhou returned to her seat in satisfaction. She hugged a certain someone's arm affectionately and said, "Prince Charming, I've realized that you're becoming more and more handsome. I'm going to love you to death. Prince Charming, although I've only been away for a short while, I've missed you so much. I've missed you so much." The corners of Jing Lidi and the others' mouths twitched. This girl was really thick-skinned to say such mushy words in public. A certain venerable hummed in agreement and then moved He Xinjia's claws away, because his little heart started beating violently again, and the seal began to loosen again. A certain venerable thought that He Xinzhou would definitely pout to express her dissatisfaction, but he didn't expect He Xinzhou to say thoughtlessly, "I'm starving to death. It's finally time for lunch. Hurry up, let's eat." A certain someone. After lunch, the beast taming competition began. He Xinzhou had already been in the limelight twice. She was prepared to listen to a certain someone and keep a low profile. Therefore, she obediently sat on the spectator stand and watched the competition. On the competition stage there was a huge iron cage. Inside, there was a level 59 blazing red-tailed female wolf and a wolf cub, Lai Yan. The rules of the competition were also very simple. The contestant who could make the female wolf voluntarily hand over the wolf cub to him would be considered to have won the competition. Everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. This was too difficult. As everyone knew, the female wolf loved her cub very much. If they didn't have a cub, they might still have a glimmer of hope to contract the female wolf. However, in order to protect her cub from harm, it was impossible for the female wolf to take the initiative to establish a spiritual connection with someone, let alone hand over the cub. It was likely that none of the contestants on the competition stage would succeed. As expected, the contestants on the competition stage tried all kinds of methods of coercion and enticement, but they were unable to make the female wolf hand over her cubs. Those contestants also gave up. Since no one had succeeded, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. He Xinzhou curled her lips. What a bunch of trash. The pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Otherwise, he would have asked the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub at any moment. Just as this guy was thinking, he heard the crowd exclaim. She raised her head and looked up at the competition stage. She saw the 3 contestants from the Li Hate Palace placing dry firewood around the cage. They were actually going to light a fire to force the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub. The wolf cub was very afraid of the smoke. If it was not done properly, its eyes would be blinded by the smoke. The crowd shook their heads. Although this didn't violate the rules, since the female wolf had to hand over the wolf cub in order to protect the wolf cub's eyes, it was still a little too cruel. However, Jing Lidi and the others had a different feeling in their hearts. They felt that the Lihan Palace had set up this topic to shock them. The subtext was nothing more than that the Lihan Palace had many ways to force them to submit obediently. They didn't want to be forced to do things the hard way. It could also be understood that the hateful palace would use their children to force them. He Xinzhou blinked her eyes and looked at the expressions of Jing Lai Di and the others. She could roughly guess what they were thinking, so she stood up. She shouted coldly, "Stop! Aren't you guys being too wicked by doing this? Although they are demonic beasts, it is a mother's nature for a female wolf to protect her cubs. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for doing this?" Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the arena and struck the Li Hate Palace contestant who was about to light the fire. He Xinzhou, Ayo, did she open her mouth today? The Li Hate Palace contestant who had been struck by the lightning did not suffer any injuries, but she was extremely frightened. No matter who was struck by the lightning, they would still be scared, alright? Thus, for a moment, the 3 Li Hate Palace contestants looked at each other, but none of them dared to light a fire. At this moment, the female wolf in the cage howled, but her gaze was directed in He Xinjia's direction. He Xinjia was so smart. She immediately understood that the female wolf was going to hand over the wolf cub to her, So she suppressed the excitement in her heart. She calmly asked, "Are you going to hand over the wolf cub to me? If you are, you can call out once. If not, you can call out twice." "Howl!" the female wolf called out. Shinjo immediately smiled until her eyes curved. She jumped onto the competition stage and shamelessly put the female wolf, the wolf cub, and the cage into the spirit beast bag. Then she spread her hands to the host. "Did you see that? The female wolf chose to hand over the wolf cub to me. So you can count the points on our East Phoenix country. You can all leave now." The host, everyone. This was too fucking mysterious, right? The beast taming competition ended just like that? Was this the female emperor of Zephyr taking advantage of them just like that? She had only smacked her lips a few times, and she had turned from a spectator into the champion? Emperor Jinglai and the others counted with their fingers. Apart from the array competition, the other 3 competitions had actually all been won by the East Phoenix Kingdom. They had previously boasted shamelessly that the East Phoenix Kingdom was the weakest, but now, their faces were hurting. Now, only the armament refining and spirit power competition was left. No matter what, they could not let the East Phoenix Kingdom go, or else that little girl would have to fly into the sky. As the sky was already dark, the host announced that the competition for the day had ended, and that the next day would continue. Thus, everyone returned to their respective encampments. After Shinjo finished her dinner, she began to draw the shocking explosive talisman that she had just learned today without stopping. This fellow was afraid that Lihen Palace would make trouble after the grand meeting tomorrow, so it was better to make more preparations. Shinjo wished that she could have a few more claws so that she could draw a few more. Moreover, she could continue to sharpen her cloud fishing hook. On the other hand, a certain venerable had an indifferent expression. His current situation was much better than when he had been hunted down by the 9 pavilions. He was completely confident that he could protect the little rascal, not to mention that the other 8 countries would most likely choose to ally with the East Phoenix Kingdom. The next day, during the artifact refining competition, Shinjo was incomparably well behaved. Because this fellow was not good at it, she had no way of showing off. In the end, it was still the Lihen Palace that obtained the first place, the How Heavenly Kingdom that obtained the second place, and the East Phoenix Kingdom that steadily obtained the last place. Emperor Jinglai and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As long as that girl did not participate, the East Phoenix Kingdom would definitely obtain the last place. After lunch, the final competition of the Spirit Stone Convention was also the highlight of the finale. What everyone did not expect was that the Lihen Palace did not send any participants to participate in the spirit power competition. Although everyone was somewhat puzzled, they did not have the time to think about it. This was because they were all attracted by the exciting duels on the competition stage. The spirit power competition was a drawing of lots to determine the winner. After an intense competition, 3 winners were finally decided. Of course, none of them were from the East Phoenix Kingdom. The subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom didn't feel ashamed, but instead felt proud, because their emperor didn't go up. Their emperor must have been afraid that she would participate again, so he took all the first place. How could people from other countries live like this? Shinjo touched her nose guiltily when she heard the discussions of the brainless fans. This other competition was fine, but this spiritual power competition, she could not do it. After all, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm, and the people competing on the stage were mostly cultivators at the 4th or 5th level of the spirit transformation realm. Unless she was playing dirty, she would not be able to beat them. When everyone thought that the final 3 winners would draw lots for a duel, they didn't expect the host to say, "The final 3 rankings will be decided by challenging the 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation." 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation? Everyone was somewhat at a loss. They had never heard of such a formation. Moreover, wasn't this a competition of spiritual power? Why did they still need to challenge the formation? Just as everyone was in a daze, they saw about 100 children jump onto the competition stage. Then they stood in their respective positions and formed seals. After that, the array was formed. The crowd cried out in alarm. Someone recognized these children. They were the inner palace disciples that the Li-Hate Palace had chosen not long ago. Someone called out the names of those children loudly. Unfortunately, those children had a cold expression on their faces, as if they hadn't heard anything. Emperor Jinglai and the others felt a buzzing sound in their heads. They finally knew the purpose of the Lihan Palace holding this Spirit Stone convention. This was a threat, a direct threat. No wonder, although the Lihan Palace recruited inner palace disciples once every 5 years, only a few of them remained after every round of selection. But this time, a total of 100 children were left behind. Originally, the various countries were still rejoicing, but they did not expect that the reason why the Li-Hate Palace had left behind so many children was to threaten them. Xinjia's eyes flashed. She had already understood that although the Li-Hate Palace would select some children from the 9 countries to work in the Li-Hate Palace, the number was extremely small. It was probably because they were afraid of betraying the Li-Hate Palace. Then the question came. Where did the people from the Li-Hate Palace come from? The answer was obvious. They were definitely from the 9 pavilions. They were all from the northern continent. No wonder the Li-Hate Palace's spiritual power and alchemy were stronger than the 9 nations. This was because even if the people from the northern continent were limited in their spiritual power when they arrived in the southern continent, they would still be higher than the average person. Then what was the Li-Hate Palace's purpose in having these children set up the 10-directional 9 Earth Heaven Fiend array? Those children had clearly forgotten what had happened before, and had become a killing machine loyal to the Li-Hate Palace. To use the safety of these children to threaten the emperors of the various countries? It was not to the extent. After all, there were only 100 children. How much could they threaten? It was likely that the final goal of the Li-Hate Palace was to intimidate them. As long as the Li-Hate Palace wanted to, they could turn the people of the 9 nations into puppets at any time. Just as Xinjia was deep in thought, the host spoke again. The 3 contestants who can last the longest in the array formation will be the final winner. Although the 3 contestants on the stage were a little surprised to see these children, they still revealed contemptuous expressions when they heard the host's words. Most of these children's spiritual power was only at the level of spirit illusion. Although there were many of them, to them it was just a piece of cake. Not to mention staying inside for a while, even breaking this array formation was very easy. Thus, one of the contestants casually entered the array formation through the life gate. However, when the array formation was activated, it was as if he was in purgatory. His surroundings were filled with a terrifying murderous aura. Let alone breaking the array formation, he would probably lose his life if he stayed for a while longer. He shouted in fear, "Let me out! Let me out! I admit defeat!" However, those children did not open the door to life. They waved their hands non-stop, and everyone watched helplessly as that contestant bled to death in the formation. Everyone was in an uproar. What shocked them was not the death of that contestant, but the ruthlessness and indifference of those children. They had completely forgotten their parents and relatives, forgotten the honor and disgrace of their country. They had completely become the minions of the Li-Hate Palace. The remaining 2 contestants looked at each other, and saw the intention to retreat in each other's eyes. It was just a competition. They didn't want to lose their lives, so they all expressed their abstentions. The host was suddenly in a difficult position. With 1 dead and 2 abstentions, would the first place in the spirit energy competition be vacant? At this moment a clear voice said, "Host, I am here to challenge the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heaven Carnage Array. If I break this array, will the first place in the spirit energy competition be given to our East Phoenix country?" Everyone followed the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was none other than the female emperor of Fenghua. This time, even the hardcore fans of East Phoenix country felt that their majesty was taking too much of a risk. That 10-directional 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation was clearly a little strange. If they were to enter, wouldn't they be courting death? Prime Minister Sima looked at a certain majesty with teary eyes, hoping that Di Biming would be able to stop their unreliable majesty. However, the certain emperor's expression was indifferent, showing no intention of stopping him. Prime Minister Sima was furious. Their emperor had already given birth to a child for him. And now he actually did not care about their emperor's life and death. What a heartbreaker. Just as the MC was unsure if he should agree to He Xinjia's request, an elder from the Li Hen Palace walked up to the stage and nodded at him. Hence the MC then said, "Yes, Your Majesty Fenghua. Please come up to the stage." He Xinjiu slowly walked up to the stage and did not immediately enter the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend array. Instead, she stretched out her claws and poked the little faces of the children beside her. The children dodged her claws impatiently and glared at her fiercely. He Xinjiu did not mind and continued to poke at the children's little faces. The host could not stand it anymore and coughed dryly. "Your Majesty Fenghua, shouldn't you enter the array formation? What's the rush? These children are all children of our 9 nations. Can't we be close to them?" The corners of the host's eyes twitched. Close to them? Poke their little faces? I've never seen anyone so close to them. After poking the little faces of more than 10 children, He Xinjiu narrowed her eyes. Guai Chao had basically determined the condition of these children. They were poisoned. Not only would it make these children forget what had happened before, but it would also greatly increase their spiritual energy in a short period of time. The consequence of doing so was that these children would become cold-blooded and bloodthirsty in the future, and their lifespans would be very short. What the Li Hen Palace did was really not human. Although the Guai Chao had determined the symptoms of these children, as the Guai Chao could not speak, He Xinjiu could only rely on guesses to communicate with it. It would still take some time before she could formulate an antidote. He Xinjiu rubbed her chin and thought for a moment. Some of the symptoms of these children were similar to amnesia. If she stimulated them with something that they had a deep memory of, perhaps they would regain their memories. Moreover, the closer it was to the time when they consumed the poison, the more effective it would be. He Xinjia's gaze fell on the 10 children standing in the southeast corner. Her eyes revealed a gaze like that of a big bad wolf. It was them. The children standing in the southeast corner shivered when they saw He Xinjiu looking at them. Why did the smile of the female emperor of Zephyr look so familiar? He Xinjiu thought of a countermeasure and said with a smile, "Come, little babies, open the life gate and let me in. I'm so beautiful, you must show mercy. Don't kill me." The audience couldn't help but frown. The Zephyr female emperor was probably not very clear-headed. Although these children were young, they had already become killing machines. It was like casting pearls before swine to tell them this. The children opened the gap in the array and He Xinjiu strolled in. However, as she walked in, she sang, "The king asked me to patrol the mountain and catch a monk for dinner. The water in this mountain stream is extremely sweet." Everyone was dumbfounded. This female emperor of Zephyr must have gone crazy. She was still singing at this time? Besides, what nonsense was she singing? What did she mean by capturing a monk for dinner? Did she still want to eat people? As she sang, she took out a whip and swung it. She didn't look like she was going in to break into the formation, but more like she was going to herd sheep. What the crowd didn't notice was that the 10 children standing in the southeast corner couldn't help but tremble when they heard He Xinjia's song and the sound of the whip. Especially one of the taller and stronger children, and the other one with delicate features. Their faces were full of fear, and some scenes flashed through their minds. A little girl was waving the whip and instructing them to do this and that, whipping them whenever there was a disagreement. Along with these scenes, some familiar people and scenes flashed through their minds again. They could not help but hug their heads and crouch on the ground in pain, wailing in agony. He Xinjiu shrugged her shoulders. She had only sang once and it was already effective? Xiao Hanio in the spirit beast pouch silently complained. Even if these children had been poisoned and lost their memories, they were easily reminded of the past that was unbearable to recall. What did this mean? This meant that Master He Xian had clearly become a nightmare for those children. The 10 Directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation had to be formed by 100 children. If 10 of them were in trouble, the formation would naturally be unable to take effect. Therefore, He Xinjiu relied on a song to break the formation. The people below the stage were completely dumbfounded. This worked. Breaking the formation with a few strokes of the whip after singing a song? Was this a joke? He Xinjiu walked to the 10 children in the southeast corner. She said indifferently, "Have you remembered something now? am the female emperor of the Juntian kingdom. If you want to go home, I can take you back. Although the children hadn't completely remembered something, they remembered their parents at home and the poison they drank. They immediately burst into tears. We were fed with poison, so we don't remember anything. Your Majesty, save us. Save us. Sob, sob, I miss my mother. I don't want to enter the palace of hatred anymore. It's full of demons. They have been making us kill people. If we don't listen, they will stab us with knives and burn us with iron. I want to go home. Sob, sob, I want to go home. When the other children heard the words of these 10 children, their faces revealed a confused and pained expression. It was obvious that they had also thought of a few things. Yun Chujia's gaze suddenly became fierce as she looked at Emperor Jinglai and the others. As the emperors of the 8 nations, do you still have to endure the abuse of the children under your rule by the Lihen Palace? When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard those children's words, their hearts were already filled with anger. Now that they heard Empress Zhou's questioning, the 8 of them stood up at the same time and looked in the direction of the Lihen Palace Master. The Lihen Palace Master frowned slightly. The plan had originally been very thorough, but now the matter had completely deviated from the original expectations. However, he was confident that these monarchs would not dare to fall out with the Lihen Palace in public. After all, the Lihen Palace had a strong reputation, and there were many imperial advisors sent by the Lihen Palace among the various countries. The Lihen Palace Master said indifferently, I will thoroughly investigate this matter and give an explanation to your 9 countries. You can take these children back. When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard the Lihen Palace Master's words, they immediately became terrified. They sat back in their seats embarrassedly, as if nothing had happened. He Xinzhou had long expected this, so she only snorted coldly and said to the 10 devilish children in the southeast corner, Let's go. I'll bring you home. The 10 devilish children immediately wiped their tears and followed He Xinzhou down the competition stage. For some reason, they felt that this Emperor Fenghua was somewhat similar to that little devil. However, it had to be said that even that little devil was 100 times better than the people of the Lihen Palace. The people of the Lihen Palace were simply devils. He Xinzhou handed the 10 devilish children to her subordinates and then returned to her seat. Jinglai Di and the others looked embarrassed. They knew that their actions were a little cowardly, but what could they do? The Lihe Palace was too powerful. If they didn't have a foolproof plan, they wouldn't dare to go against the Lihe Palace. The children on the competition stage had already been brought back by people from various countries. The host looked in the direction of the Lihe Palace in confusion. Since the competition had ended, shouldn't the final results be announced? The bad thing was that he had just counted with his fingers and realized that the East Phoenix Kingdom was probably the first place in the overall score. After all, the female emperor of Zephyr had relied on her own strength to obtain several first places. Very soon, an elder of the Lihe Palace came over and indicated for him to announce the results truthfully. The host heaved a sigh of relief and quickly announced the results of the competition. The East Phoenix Kingdom was indeed the first place, and it even had several dozen points more than the second place, the Lihe Palace, to say nothing of the other 8 countries. The Lihen Palace was quite straightforward. As expected, they distributed the few mineral veins to the top 3 kingdoms. Among them, the East Phoenix Kingdom obtained 5 mineral veins in one go. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Did they intend to make the East Phoenix Kingdom the target of envy and jealousy, and then attack them together? In their dreams. Then the Spirit Stone Convention ended without any awkwardness. Emperor Jinglai and the others were at a loss. He Xinjia's ability at the Spiritual Stone Convention had tempted them, but when they thought about the terrifying strength of the Lihen Palace and the national masters in their own country, they felt that even if the 9 countries were to form an alliance, they wouldn't be able to defeat the Lihen Palace. Just as they were at a loss, the people of the Lihen Palace came to their tent and asked them about their final decision. This time they were not as polite as last time. There was a hint of threat in their words. If they made Lihen Palace unhappy, then the imperial advisors would spread bad rumors about their royal family, They would not be able to sit firmly on the throne of emperor. Emperor Jinglai and the others were both angry and afraid. They could only agree to send troops to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom as soon as they returned to the country. After He Shinjo heard the report from the spirit bee, the corners of her mouth curled up. The people of the Lihan Palace were really a godlike ally. At first, Emperor Jinglai and the others were still hesitant, but they forced them to rebel. However, they couldn't blame the Lihan Palace. After all, they didn't put the 9 nations in their eyes and thought that the 9 nations didn't have the courage to fight back. Unfortunately, they had overlooked one thing. When a person was in a desperate situation, they would instead burst out with unprecedented courage. He Xinjia's eyes rolled and she eagerly approached Di Biming. Prince Charming, can you help me send a message to those 8 idiots? Let them personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix country in a few days. When Prime Minister Sima heard her words, he almost cried. Had their emperor gone mad? Shouldn't they be discussing how to stop the 8 kingdoms from forming an alliance? Why did they still ask the 8 monarchs to personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom? Di Biming, on the other hand, indifferently nodded his head. He knew why Yun Chuzhou asked him to deliver the letter. It was because he had the highest spiritual power. Only by delivering the letter would the people of the Lihan Palace not discover it. That night, Di Biming did as he was told and sent the note that Yun Chuzhou had written to Emperor Jinglai and the others. When Emperor Jinglai and the others saw a certain deity standing by their bed without them knowing, they were all scared out of their wits. How could they not agree? They sent a certain deity away in fear and trepidation, as if they were sending off their ancestors. The next morning, the various countries set off to leave. He Shinjo thought that the Lihan Palace would not let her leave just like that. As expected, when they arrived at a valley that they had to walk through, the Lihan Palace surrounded the ruler and officials of the East Feng Kingdom. The leader was none other than the one who instigated Emperor Shaoxian, Elder Zhu. He Shinjo rubbed her hands in excitement. It had been a long time since she was tortured, and she was almost suffocated to the point of turning into a mushroom. Moreover, she didn't need to hide her strength and bide her time. She could show off as much as she wanted and she could use these people to have fun. Thus, this fellow waved his hand at the people behind him. You guys don't need to do anything first. Oh, go meet them. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom looked at each other. Although their empress had a belly full of evil tricks and was very talented in alchemy, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm after all. How could this be possible? The people of the Li Hate Palace did not even look at He Shinjo. Did this female emperor of Zephyr really think highly of herself? If not for the palace head's strict orders to keep her alive, she would not have been killed. He Shinjo walked to the front with her hands behind her back. She looked at the people of the Li Hate Palace and said pretentiously, "Do you want to fight one-on-one or together?" Pandianovu won. The people of the Li Hate Palace immediately burst out laughing. This female emperor of Zephyr was most likely not very smart. Elder Zhu looked at Di Biming behind Yun Chuzhou with fear. This man was the main target of their operation this time. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, she was not even worth mentioning. Since she was looking for trouble, he would grant her wish. Elder Zhu pointed at a random person. "Zhouhao, I'll leave him to you." "Yes, master." An ordinary-looking man walked up to Yun Chuzhou and sneered. "Female emperor of Zephyr, I advise you to surrender. Otherwise you will suffer." He Shinjo raised her hand and shot several bolts of lightning at the man. "Cut the crap. Don't you know that there's a saying that goes, don't talk when you can? Watch my thunder." Shui Wuji almost burst into laughter. It would have been fine if someone else had said don't talk when you can, but didn't little sister Jo feel that she was slapping her own face by saying that? When did she not rely on her words to win a fight? This was the first time that most of the people present had seen He Shinjo make a move. After all, this fellow had always relied on his mouth and had never used his true strength before. When those brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom saw that their majesty had actually unleashed a bolt of lightning, the crowd immediately became excited. They all pulled at their necks and cheered. Female Emperor of Magnificence is a peerless beauty in the world. Female Emperor of the Wind and Flowers sink the fish fall the geese close the moon shame. Female Emperor of Zephyr is invincible. Your Majesty. Kill him. Your Majesty, you are the best. We support you forever. Hei Shinjo heard the brainless fans shouting. Suddenly more pretentious, she kept a low profile for such a long time. Finally can soar to the sky. However, ideals were beautiful, but reality was bone-chilling. Although this fellow's lightning was powerful, the opposite Zhou Hao's spiritual power was much higher than hers. Hei Shinjo quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. The brainless fans immediately quieted down. Oh no, their Majesty wouldn't be defeated, right? Zhou Hao saw that Yun Chujio was obviously no match for her, and his face was filled with pride and disdain. This female Emperor of Zephyr was just SOSO, and he thought that she would be very powerful. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw that the little girl opposite him had released a purple spirit beast piglet. He was stunned at first, then he laughed out loud. Female Emperor of Zephyr, although it is rare for you to be able to summon a spirit beast, but for a spirit beast like you, haha, this is simply a joke. The hardcore fans of the East Feng Kingdom were also somewhat dumbfounded. What the hell was their Majesty releasing? Wasn't their Majesty's spiritual beast too weak? However, they were deeply impressed by the essence of their Majesty's strategy of not losing to others. They all shouted, "Bah! What do you know? Our Majesty's is a godly pig." Exactly. Don't look down on the small size of the godly pig. It'll torture you to death later. Your Majesty, release the pig and bite him. The corner of Hei Xinjia's eyes twitched. How come all her subjects had become idiots? This really had nothing to do with her. Although this fellow was cursing in his heart, he still said, 10,000-year-old single pig, torture him to death. Zhou Hao was stunned when he heard Hei Xinjia's words. 10,000-year-old single pig? What nonsense was this? This little pig wanted to torture him to death? This was simply nonsense. At this moment, everyone was shocked to discover that the purple little pig had turned black. Its body was rapidly growing larger, and a pair of wings had grown out of its back. Zhou Hao was still in a daze when De Hua sent him flying with a kick. Like a kite with its string cut, Zhou Hao crashed into a large rock and fainted with a choking sound. Hei Shinjo immediately pointed at the people of the Li Hate Palace and said heroically, "Who else? Who else? Do any of you still want to come up and court death?" The people of the Li Hate Palace were clearly greatly frightened by De Hua. It was not that De Hua was terrifying, but that they were unable to digest it in a short period of time. How could a spiritual beast actually grow larger? Change its color? Grow wings? The hardcore fans of the East Phoenix country were in an uproar. All sorts of praises were poured into their ears. They almost knelt down and worshipped Hei Shinjo as their ancestor. Hei Shinjo raised her chin in satisfaction. Yes, this was the feeling, this was the style. She was now the female emperor of the East Phoenix country. Who was she afraid of? She had a killer weapon like a gigolo by her side. Who was she afraid of? If not for the fear of destroying her image, this fellow might have thrown her head back and laughed a few times to express her arrogance. The people from the Li Hen Palace finally came to their senses. Elder Zhu carefully sized up De Hua. Although this spirit beast was a little strange, the female emperor of Zephyr's spirit energy was limited, so this spirit beast was nothing to be afraid of. Elder Zhu frowned. This woman, the female emperor of Zephyr, had a lot of tricks up her sleeves. It was better to end the battle as soon as possible. Therefore, he did not ask anyone else to accept the challenge. Instead, he walked towards Hei Shinjo personally. Hei Xinjia's heart skipped a beat. She could deal with the scum from the Li Hate Palace, but this Elder Zhu's spiritual power was much higher than hers. She was not confident that she could win against him. This fellow blinked and snorted coldly. "I won't fight with trash like you. Brother Wuji, I'll leave it to you." Shui Wuji, who was watching the show, Shui Wuji, who had been forced into a corner, saw that Hei Shinjo had already moved closer to debeiming and was acting cute. He could only walk over to Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu did not have much information about Xue Wuji. He only knew that a bewitching and handsome red-robed man had suddenly appeared beside the female emperor of Zephyr. He sized Xue Wuji up. His spiritual power was on par with his, both at the 5th level of psychic power. However, he did not take Xue Wuji seriously. Although their spiritual power was the same, he had much more experience in fighting enemies than him. It would not be a problem to take him down. However, after exchanging blows, Elder Zhu was horrified to discover that although Xue Wuji's spiritual power level was the same as his actual ability was far beyond the 5th level of psychic power. He could not help but secretly complain. Xue Wuji, on the other hand, was free and unrestrained. He thought to himself that it would be a good opportunity for little sister Jiu to see how powerful he was. He did not want to feel that he was the #1 person in the world with facial paralysis all day long. However, that facial paralysis was indeed abnormal. He was simply inhuman. Elder Zhu quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. He simply ordered the people behind him to attack together in anger out of embarrassment, hoping to win by relying on numbers. Who would have thought that just as he finished speaking, a white shadow flashed by and Di Biming joined the battle. In the blink of an eye, Elder Zhu was held in Di Biming's hands. He Xinjiu was immediately energized. She held the rolling pin and pointed at the people of the Li Hate Palace. "Hey, get out of my way or I'll kill this old bastard." The people of the Li Hate Palace looked at each other. This was completely different from what they had expected. They had thought that with so many people surrounding the people of the East Phoenix Kingdom, they would be able to capture them easily. Who would have thought that Elder Zhu would be held hostage in such a short period of time? The people of the Li Hate Palace turned their gazes to Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu shouted in terror, "Move, move, move!" The people of the Li Hate Palace had no choice but to make a path for He Xinjiu and the others to pass through. He Xinjiu held Elder Zhu hostage all the way out of the valley. When they were about to board the flying spirit tool, this fellow raised his staff and smacked Elder Zhu to death. The people of the Li Hate Palace were furious. "Female Emperor Fenghua, didn't we agree that as long as we let you all leave, you would let Elder Zhu go? Why did you kill him?" He Xinjiu curled her lips. "Don't you know that war is all about deception? A bunch of idiots. Go back and tell that palace master of yours not to think that everything will be fine just because he clings tightly to Tower Master Luochen. Sooner or later I will kill him." After He Xinjiu said those harsh words, she flew away on her flying spirit tool. The people of the Li Hate Palace wanted to chase after her. But when they thought of Di Biming's abnormal spiritual power, they retreated in dejection. Seeing this, He Xinjiu sighed and said faintly, "I'm still too weak. When will I be as powerful as you, Prince Charming? Even if I'm as powerful as Brother Wu Ji." Pan Dian 0 a certain venerable looked at her indifferently. "Since you know that you're too weak, why don't you come and cultivate?" He Xinjiu. He Xinjiu wished she could slap herself, but she still followed a certain someone into the cabin. "Prince Charming, the heavens and earth have a conscience. It's really not that I'm slacking off or not cultivating properly. You also know that my constitution is quite special. If it weren't for the heavenly lightning striking me, I wouldn't have been able to level up even if I didn't eat or sleep." He Xinjiu blinked her eyes, she said sincerely. A certain lord looked at her and said, "Even if I can't level up, it's still good to consolidate my foundation. It's better than reading a book." He Xinjiu. "All right, I can't win against you." This fellow pretended to cultivate for a while, and his heart started to grow wild. When he opened his eyes and saw that Di Biming didn't say anything, he took out the 10,000-year-old black iron chain and started to grind the cloud fishing hook. Wu Yun had been kidnapped by her, and was probably going to come and take revenge on her soon. She had to hurry up and fix the hook so that she could catch a few more little dark clouds. When this fellow thought about how she could live a life where she could be struck by lightning any time in the future, she immediately smiled with her eyes curved. She wished that Wu Yun would come and take revenge on her right away. When she thought of Wu Yun, this fellow thought of her crow's beak skill again. It had been so long, but she still could not find the trigger point for the crow's beak skill. Why was it sometimes effective and sometimes not? This was different from Xiao Hanio's curse. Xiao Hanio's curse could only be used once a day, and her crow mouth skill could sometimes be used twice a day, and sometimes not even once. What the hell? In the next few days, Hei Xinzhou focused on sharpening the cloud fishing hook. Finally, on this day, this guy's cloud fishing hook was completed. In fact, the process was not complicated at all. The main reason was that the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron was too difficult to get. This guy had a large kitchen knife and a small flame. It was not easy to make a large hook. In order to train her cloud fishing skills, this fellow let little Wu Yun fly around randomly. She squatted at the porthole of the flying spirit tool and swung the 10,000-year-old black iron chain to fish for clouds. This fellow muttered while fishing, "This 10,000-year-old black iron chain is too damn heavy. Fortunately, I have enough strength. Otherwise, I would not be able to move it at all." Hearing this fellow's muttering, the corners of Xue Wuji's eyes could not help but twitch violently. Of course it was heavy. The 10,000-year-old black iron chains in this guy's hand were connected together. They weighed several thousand kilograms. How could they not be heavy? Hei Xinzhou also found a problem. Since the black iron chains were chains, they were different from fishing rods. They always hung down. If she wanted to catch little Wu Yun, she had to fly higher than little Wu Yun. This was difficult. She would not have a chance to fly higher than Wu Yun. Wouldn't all her previous efforts be wasted? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. His mood fell from heaven to the 18th level of hell. He hatefully summoned little Wu Yun back and returned to his cabin. This guy fiercely threw the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain to the ground and cursed, "What the fuck? What 10,000-year-old mysterious iron? Bullshit. It's not even as good as an ordinary bamboo pole." In his anger, this guy accidentally cut the back of his hand with the hook in front of him. Immediately, fresh blood came out. She became even angrier and kicked the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain several times. The 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain didn't do anything, but her foot hurt. She couldn't help but feel sad. She hummed and left the cabin to complain to a certain venerate. Seeing the wound on her hand, the venerate's face immediately darkened. "How did you do it?" Hei Xinzhou felt even more wronged. She threw herself into the venerate's arms and began to cry. A certain being couldn't care less about the seal anymore. He asked anxiously, "What happened? Who hurt you? Were they the idiots in your spirit beast bag? Xiao Hanio, Xiao Hei, Cat Cub. Who did they offend? How did they become the suspects all of a sudden? Alright, you're right if you're strong. Just bear with it." In fact, a certain entity was not targeting them. It was mainly because a certain entity thought that other than him and Yun Chuzhou, there were only Xue Wuji and Feng on the flying spirit tool. Naturally, they would not hurt Hei Xinzhou. In that case, the targets of suspicion would naturally be the dumb cuties. Hei Xinzhou hummed and said, "They didn't do it. It was the damn cloud fishing hook." A certain lord was dumbfounded. Wasn't the cloud fishing hook used to catch little Wu Yun? Why did it hurt itself? Seeing the lord's blank face, Hei Xinzhou sobbed and told him what had happened. Then she said angrily, "I spent so much time and effort, but in the end, I found that the damn 10,000-year-old black iron chain couldn't be used as a fishing rod at all. How can I hold my breath? What's worse is that I cut myself. I'm so miserable." A certain Zhou's face was stiff. How did she get the cut on her hand like that? A certain Zhou, who was amused, suddenly froze. She looked down and saw that a certain Zhou had put her injured hand on his lips. "Prince Charming, come. Don't waste it. Drink all the blood." A certain Jiayu's expression suddenly turned cold. She pinched Hei Xinjia's chin and said word by word, "I've said that I want die, and I want drink your blood again. Have you forgotten?" Hei Xinzhou sensed that a certain Zhou was a little displeased. She pouted and said, "I'm just afraid that I'll be wasted. If you don't want to drink it, then don't drink it." What a disgrace. A certain Zhou wanted to explain, but she didn't know where to start. Therefore, she didn't say anything. She took out some hemostatic powder from her storage ring and sprinkled it on a certain Zhou's wound. In fact, it was fine even if she didn't sprinkle it, because in just a short while, A certain Zhou's wound had already healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. He Xinzhou pouted and glared at a certain Zhou. Then she said angrily, "You don't have to pretend to be kind. I'm leaving." A certain venerable. What kind of madness was this? Actually, He Xinzhou was completely venting her anger. She was in a terrible mood now. She had been busy for so long and had placed so much hope on it, but in the end it was all for naught. How could she not hold her breath? When this fellow returned to the cabin and saw the black iron chain on the ground, he was instantly infuriated. However, this thing was extremely hard. If she were to kick it, she would be asking for trouble. The guy blinked his eyes. Humph. Even if he couldn't do anything to it, he had to vent his anger. Therefore, the guy summoned a small flame and burned the black iron chains. As he burned them, he cursed, "Trash! What 10,000-year-old black iron? Bah! It's not even as good as an ordinary fishing rod. You trash can only be used to tie demon beasts. Those demon beasts are also weak. They were actually trapped by you. If I knew you were such a trash, I wouldn't have spent so much effort to connect the chains together. What a waste of time." After cursing for hundreds of times, He Xinzhou finally felt relieved. However, even though the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain had been burned for a long time, there was no change. The guy had no choice but to put it into his storage ring and ignore it. A few days later, the flying spiritual artifact finally arrived in the Jun Tiantian kingdom. He Xinzhou did not return to the capital directly. Instead, she settled down at the border and was ready to wait for Emperor Jinglai and the others to bring an army over. Half a month later, the Yutian kingdom and the other 8 kingdoms had indeed sent an army together and led the troops to the Jun Tiantian kingdom's border. He Xinzhou greeted Emperor Jinglai and the others with a smile. Then she said, "Isn't it great to have friends come from afar? It doesn't matter if we are enemies or friends in the future. After all, we have known each other for a while. Come, let's have a feast and drink to our heart's content under the sky." Emperor Jinglai and the others still hadn't made up their minds on whether they should ally with the East Phoenix Kingdom or follow the arrangements of the Lihan Palace and destroy the East Phoenix Kingdom. Therefore, they didn't reject Empress Zhou's suggestion. After all, in this open space under the watchful eyes of the public, she didn't dare to do anything. He Xinzhou looked at the wine cup in a certain honored lattice hand with envy. She took a sip of tea without any taste and said, "Your Majesties, I know that you are also very conflicted and have a hard time making a decision. After all, you carry the legacy of your ancestors and the expectations of your subjects. The burden on your shoulders is too heavy." Hearing He Xinzhia's words, Jing Lidi and the others almost cried. Everyone thought that the emperor was free and unfettered, but in fact, only they knew the bitterness inside. They had to go to court before dawn, and if they were delayed for even a day, they would be called stupid. Which imperial concubine couldn't be taken care of? Otherwise, the families behind them would cause trouble. There was no need to mention the subjects. If there was any disturbance, any natural or man-made disaster would be attributed to them. Not to mention, there was also the great mountain of the Lihan Palace. He Xinzhou saw the change in the expressions of Emperor Jinglai and the others. She sighed. "Alas, in fact, we are all in the same boat. Therefore, even if you submit to the Lihan Palace's arrangement to destroy our East Phoenix Kingdom, I will not blame you. After all, you have no choice." Hearing Yun Chujia's sincere words, Emperor Jinglai and the others immediately felt a little embarrassed, but they didn't know how to explain it. After all, their army was already behind them. "Your Majesties, let me say something. Even if your army comes to the border, I won't worry about my own safety. After all, my fiancé is a great weapon that can destroy heaven and earth. None of you can do anything to me. At worst, my husband and I will just wander around the world and be at ease." However, you might not be able to escape unscathed by then. They have plotted for so many years. I'm afraid that it's time to close the net. Destroying our East Phoenix Kingdom is just the beginning. None of your 8 kingdoms will be able to escape. If you want to escape the fate of having your kingdoms destroyed, you only have one choice. and that is to form an alliance with me. Otherwise, your end will be very miserable." Emperor Jinglai and the others looked at each other in silence. They admitted that what Yun Chujo said made some sense, but her fiancé and her evil schemes were not enough to move them. This was a life-and-death decision, so they naturally wouldn't make it easily. He Xinzhou blinked her eyes and continued. "Have you ever thought about where the people of the Lihen Palace come from?" Jinglai Di said with some trepidation. I've thought about this question before. It's highly likely that they are from the northern continent." Yun Chujo nodded. "You're right. According to the information I have, the Lihen Palace is most likely a puppet of the 9 pavilions of the northern continent. Then here comes the problem. Since the 9 pavilions have already begun to take action, do you think they will be at ease letting you continue to govern? The 9 pavilions' ambition is to rule the northern and southern continents. The first step is to first rule the southern continent and then accumulate power to rule the northern continent. Therefore, you are destined to be sacrificial victims. There is only one ending, and that is death." A certain venerable glanced at He Xinzhou indifferently. The 9-layered pavilion wanted to rule the northern and southern continents? This fellow didn't even blink when he lied. However, he frowned. It wasn't impossible. Lan Luochen had always been an extremely ambitious person. It was likely that his goal was to rule the northern and southern continents, just as Little Zhou had said. Emperor Jinglai and the others knew very little about the situation in the northern continent. After being tricked by He Xinzhou, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that there was no way out. However, they still had doubts. Although the Lihen Palace had ulterior motives, this Empress Fenghua might not have any good intentions. Furthermore, how could she possibly go against the Lihen Palace? Just as the atmosphere was in a stalemate, the sky suddenly darkened. Everyone was puzzled. It was already morning, so how could the sky turn dark? Everyone raised their heads and looked up. They saw a large patch of Wu Yun gathering from all directions with a thunderous momentum. Almost at the same time, everyone was suppressed by the immense pressure. Their legs trembled slightly, and they even found it difficult to speak. Di Biming's brows were tightly knitted together. With such a big stance, could it be that they were here to seek revenge on Little Nine? This time Wu Yun was coming menacingly. He was afraid that it would not be good. The 2 bones in his hands had already been used by him. In a while, he would not be able to help even if he wanted to. Di Biming's hands tightened in his sleeves. After dealing with the Lihen Palace, he had to start doing some things. Otherwise, he would not be able to protect Little Nine's safety. He Xinzhou knew better than anyone that these Wu Yun were coming for her. She felt so wronged. It was all the fault of those damn 10,000-year-old black iron chains. Otherwise, she would have been able to catch a few little Wu Yun and anger those old Wu Yun to death. This guy said shamelessly to Emperor Jinglai and the others, "You have eaten and drank from me. You can't possibly not show your gratitude, right? Come, lend me all your flying spiritual artifacts. I have great use for them." Jinglai Di and the others felt as if their hearts were going to explode. Were they the ones who wanted to eat and drink? She was the one who had sent the invitation, okay? And now she was asking for a reward? She was really shameless. And borrow? She was clearly robbing them by force, okay? However, they were restrained by Wu Yun's pressure at the moment, and their movements were very slow, not to mention fighting with their spiritual power. The girl opposite them and her fiancé were completely fine. They could only be slaughtered by others now. Therefore, Emperor Jinglai and the others had no choice but to lend a few flying spiritual weapons to He Xinzhou. Although He Xinzhou was not very satisfied, she did not want to go too far. She said with a smile, "Thank you, your majesties. At this moment I won't hide anything from you. The dark clouds in the sky are all my little Wu Yun's relatives. They are here to visit." Shui Wuji almost laughed out loud. "Little Ninth Sister, can you talk more nonsense? Visit their relatives. They are clearly here to seek revenge on you, okay?" Emperor Jinglai and the others' faces were stiff. Wu Yun came to visit her relatives? Wu Yun came to strike people, okay? Was she bullying them because they were uncultured? They looked at Empress Jo with a complicated expression. This little girl wouldn't be struck to death by heavenly lightning, right? If that was the case, they didn't have to hesitate anymore. They could only obey the Lihan Palace's order to destroy the East Phoenix Kingdom. At this moment, Wu Yun had already approached them. He Xinzhou waved her claws and said, "Well, I'll bring little Wu Yun to see my relatives first. You guys can go ahead." He Xinzhou said as she ran outside to prevent the heavenly lightning from striking down and implicating the innocent. Emperor Jinglai and the others wanted to leave, but it was very difficult to move under the immense pressure, let alone return to their own base. They could only sit down embarrassedly and stretch their necks to look at He Xinjia's shrinking back. Di Baiming was worried and followed He Xinzhou from afar. He Xinzhou thought to herself as she ran. This time it was not going to be easy. There were 8 dark clouds coming this time. They were trying to strike her to death. It was unlikely that she could withstand them with only her flying spiritual artifact, unless she could find a place to hide from the heavenly lightning. However, there was no such existence within a radius of several thousand li. Could it be that she could only watch as she was struck to death? Thinking of this fellow was extremely resentful of the cloud fishing rod that had died prematurely. If it was not for the 10,000-year-old black iron chain that was not strong enough, what was there to be afraid of? How many dark clouds had been fished over by it? Let's see how they will continue to show off. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky had already caught up with He Xinzhou. Wu Yun number 1, the unlucky fellow who had been kidnapped by He Xinzhou, glared fiercely at He Xinzhou. "Damn girl, you're dead meat this time. With 8 dark clouds gathered together, not to mention a damn girl like you, even the mighty figures of the higher continent would not be able to resist. You would only have a dead end." The more Wu Yun number 1 thought about it, the more excited he became. The entire cloud started to tremble. The other 7 dark clouds looked at the little girl below with disdain. With just this fellow, was there a need for them to act together? That trash number 1 actually let this little girl steal a cloud wing? It was really embarrassing. Therefore, when Wu Yun number 1 gave the order to strike, the 7 dark clouds struck with indifference. He Xinzhou saw that the heavenly lightning was already striking down, so she decided not to run anymore. She sat cross-legged on the ground and absorbed the lightning that kept striking down. He Xinzhou was quite surprised. It seemed that the strength of the heavenly lightning was very ordinary. Could it be that the 7 dark clouds that came to help Wu Yun were newbies? Soon an hour passed. The 7 dark clouds that came to help looked at He Xinzhou in surprise. After striking for so long, nothing happened? It seemed that number 1 was not lying. This little girl was indeed a disaster. Therefore, the 7 dark clouds stopped being perfunctory and started hacking at He Xinzhou with all their might. This time, He Xinzhou could not hold on any longer. The lightning power of the 8 dark clouds was not a joke. It was only this pervert. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been hacked into ashes in an instant. He Xinzhou blinked her eyes. Her spiritual power was not enough to supplement her intelligence. Now she could only rely on her wits. Therefore, this guy stretched his neck and shouted, "Hey, wait a minute. Let's pause for a moment. I have something important to say." Wu Yun number 1 knew that this guy was full of bad ideas, but the other 7 flowers did not know. They all stopped the lightning strikes, wanting to hear what He Xinzhou had to say. Seeing this, Wu Yun number 1 had no choice but to stop the lightning strikes. A sense of foreboding rose in his heart. He Xinzhou said obsequiously, "It's my great honor to be able to meet all the lords Wu Yun today. My little heart has been beating non-stop. I'm afraid that I'm the only one who can be struck by 8 dark clouds at the same time. This is a blessing that I will never be able to recover from in 8 lifetimes. The imposing aura and thunderous aura of all the lords Wu Yun make people submit from the bottom of their hearts. I will die without regrets if I can see such a scene before I die." Wu Yun number 1 cursed in his heart. "Bah! Shameless! Don't play this trick. If your little heart doesn't beat, you'll be fucking dead." Unfortunately, The other 7 Wu Yun had never seen such a trick before. Hearing He Xinjia's heartfelt praise, all of them trembled with pride. It had to be said that although this little girl was a scourge, she still knew how to talk. Wu Yun number 1 trembled a few times in dissatisfaction, indicating for the 7 dark clouds to continue hacking. However, the 7 dark clouds had never heard such a vivid praise. Not only did they not help Wu Yun number 1 to hack, they even told it not to hack first. In order to not delay the little girl's words, Wu Yun number 1 was so angry. How was the helper it found? It was clearly a burden. He Xinjiu narrowed her eyes. It seemed that both people and Yun liked to hear good words. In any case, it was a good opportunity for her to sort out the brutal power of lightning in her body. Therefore, the guy said with a smile, I don't know the distinguished names of all of you, Lord Wu Yun, but I see that there are 7 of you besides the previous one. Why don't I call you by the rainbow color? Wu Yun number 1 was so angry that it was twitching. Why was it eliminated? Did it not want a name? No. It did not care about the name given by the girl. It just did not feel good to be treated differently. Okay? The other 7 were very happy. Rainbow color. It sounded very high and mighty, didn't it? Lord Qi, Lord Orange, Lord Huang, Lord Green, Lord Blue, Lord Purple, Little Joe salutes you. He Xinjiu bowed to them in a proper manner. The 7 rainbow clouds that had just come out of the oven trembled with pride. Previously, they only had numerical code names. Who would have thought that from now on they would also have names? Moreover, it was a rather cool rainbow color. Just thinking about it made them a little excited. Wu Yun number 1 snorted in his heart. A bunch of idiots. That little girl was a devil that ate people without spitting out their bones. There was no need for you all to cry. Following that, He Xinjiu rambled on with a bunch of flattery, causing the 7 rainbow clouds to be unable to find Bei, not to mention helping Wu Yun number 1 strike He Xinjiu. Wu Yun number 1 was so angry. He simply ignored them and continued to hack at He Xinjiu. Jealousy. It's pure jealousy. Rainbow Cloud Lords, it can't stand to see you well. He Xinjiu shamelessly tried to sow discord. The 7 rainbow clouds were quite dissatisfied with Wu Yun number 1. They had asked it not to split the rainbow cloud, so why didn't it listen? Could it be that it couldn't stand to see them happy? If it had known this would happen, it wouldn't have come to help it. No wonder the little girl had stolen a cloud wing. Such a fool deserved it. Therefore, the 7 rainbow clouds floated below Wu Yun number 1, and all the lightning from Wu Yun number 1 struck the 7 rainbow clouds. Wu Yun number 1 almost gasped. How is this a helper? They were clearly enemies. He Xinjiu almost laughed out loud. These 7 rainbow clouds were really naive and innocent. Thus, this fellow tried even harder to curry favor with her, just short of flying up to the sky to hug her thigh. While she was trying to curry favor on the other side, Emperor Jinglai and the others were staring in He Xinjiu's direction with their mouths agape. They naturally couldn't hear what He Xinjiu said, but they had clearly seen the situation of the Wu Yun. Oh my god! Even after 8 dark clouds struck for such a long time, they still could not kill the female emperor of Fenghua? Also, who could tell them why those 7 dark clouds were helping that little girl resist the heavenly lightning? Were they crazy? Or did Wu Yun start an internal conflict? Di Baiming, who was not far away, heard everything clearly. His eyes could not help but reveal a helpless and doting look. It had to be said that little Zhou's mouth had saved her countless times. It was just that he did not know if these silly clouds would always be kept in the dark. Wu Yun number 1 could not take it anymore. He used Wu Yun's unique method to shout, "Don't forget that our mission this time is to kill this scourge below. Moreover, time is limited. After all, you have other missions to carry out. If you continue to cause trouble, be careful not to be punished by Tian Dao." When the 7 rainbow clouds heard Wu Yun number 1's words, they instantly wilted. They could only reluctantly continue attacking He Xinjiu with Wu Yun number 1. Although it would be a pity if this sweet-mouthed little girl died, if Tian Dao was dissatisfied, he might kill them. Therefore, it was better to carry out the mission obediently. He Xinjia's heart tightened when she saw Wu Yun's sudden attack. She reckoned that no matter how sweet words she said, it would be useless. She could only rely on herself. Therefore this guy started to release Xiao Hanio, Xiao Mogu and De Hua. The 7 rainbow clouds were stunned, especially when they saw De Hua, who had turned black. Oh my, there was such a perverted spiritual beast in this world? A spiritual beast that could devour lightning? He Xinjiu could only hold on for less than an hour, so she had to take the flying spiritual device to walk the clouds. Although this method was not bad, the heavenly lightning that came from the 8 Wu Yun was too powerful. A flying spiritual device could not last for long, and 10 flying spiritual devices could only last for 15 minutes. The flying spiritual devices in He Xinjia's storage ring soon ran out. He Xinjiu had no choice but to call out little Wu Yun and let it help carry her for a while. When the 7 rainbow clouds saw little Wu Yun, they were stunned at first. Then they began to mock Wu Yun number 1. It was so stupid. Its cloud wings were actually refined by the little girl. It was really embarrassing. Wu Yun number 1 suddenly became even darker. It risked its life to hack at little Wu Yun, wishing that it could immediately chop little Wu Yun into pieces. Wu Yun soon reached its saturation state. Just as He Xinjiu was about to put it into her storage ring, she heard a loud voice from afar, "Little Jiu, let Wu Yun carry you. After it consumes the power of lightning, it can help you resist the heavenly lightning again." He Xinjiu slapped her thigh. That's right. Why didn't she think of that? She was really smart and muddle-headed, thanks to the gigolo. Therefore, this fellow let little Wu Yun carry her and began to run wildly. Wu Yun number 1 was so angry that he almost fainted when he saw his cloud wings carrying He Xinjiu everywhere. This was his cloud wings. Now it had become the smelly girl's flying spirit tool. It was a great humiliation. After a while, when little Wu Yun's lightning power was about to be exhausted, He Xinjiu let it land on the ground and helped her resist the heavenly lightning while charging it. Little Wu Yun had absorbed enough lightning and once again carried He Xinjiu on her back. He Xinjiu sat on little Wu Yun, feeling extremely happy. With such an awesome cheat like little Wu Yun, did it mean that she could walk the cloud indefinitely? Little thing, not to mention 8 black clouds, she was not afraid of even 18 black clouds. Panda N0V1 compared to Wu Yun's good mood. Wu Yun number 1 was furious. How could he bully the clouds like this? Was there anything worse than using his cloud wings to deal with them? As time passed, the 7 rainbow clouds became anxious. They had other missions and had been delayed for a long time. They had to finish the battle as soon as possible. Therefore, the 8 dark clouds used their full strength and hacked at He Xinjiu and Wu Yun. After a while, Wu Yun could not hold on anymore. Although it could release lightning and then absorb it, there was a limit. Finally, it collapsed on the ground and could not fly anymore. He Xinjiu could only put Wu Yun into her storage ring and hold on by herself. The meridians in her body were about to explode at any moment. This fellow could not help but complain in his heart. It's over. This time she was most likely going to die. She had not slept with the gigolo, she had not found her biological parents, and she had not given birth to the little monkey. She really did not want to die. A moment later, blood began to seep out from her body, and her spiritual sense slowly became a little blurry. At this moment, the heavenly lightning that kept striking her body stopped. She raised her head with great effort and saw Di Biming, who was wearing a white robe, forming seals and protecting her with his spiritual energy. Yun Chujo did not say anything to chase Di Biming away. She knew that no matter what she said, the gigolo would not abandon her. She might as well use this time to say a few words of truth. He Xinjiu looked at a certain god lovingly and shouted, "My idol, the biggest regret in my life is that I can't sleep with you." A certain god, Wu Yun number 1, the 7 rainbow cloud. Di Biming looked at her speechlessly and said indifferently, "No need to regret. You can continue sleeping in your next life." The lightning paused for a moment and then struck down fiercely. Although they usually did not strike the wrong target, they would not show mercy since this man came to seek his own death. The thunder kept striking down. Although Di-Biming's spiritual power was much higher than He Xinjia's, he was still a man of flesh and blood after all. His spotless white clothes were soon dyed red with blood, but he still protected Yun Chuzhou firmly. Yun Chuzhou laughed softly, but there were tears flowing out of the corners of her eyes. Prince Charming, not only can we not have sex when we are together, but I also caused you to be injured and struck by the thunder time and time again. Do you regret falling in love with me? Di-Biming could no longer stand. He was kneeling on the ground, but he was still making seals slowly and firmly. Hearing Yun Chujia's words, the corner of his lips curled up. No regrets. Yun Chujia's face was full of tears, but her smile was even more brilliant. She raised her head and said to the sky, "Damn the heavens. Strike. If you have the ability, kill me today. Otherwise, I don't care about the Tiandao or the laws. I will definitely make this world change." As Yun Chuzhou said that, she suddenly stood up and held up her hands to protect Di-Biming. Di-Biming was about to say something when Yun Chuzhou bent down and covered Di-Biming's lips with blood. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.